Hello, Mystery Seekers. Apira here. Welcome to episode 6 of the Case Closed podcast. Today, I will have a special guest with me too. Kind of like Yukiko, we will have the ultimate casting here. I am here with somebody very special. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
What's up, everyone? This is Prof.C of SaveCaseClosed.
This is episode 6 on the Case Closed podcast, and today we're going to be mainly talking about the new English dub. I'm sure Bang Zoom Funimation will come up a lot. Like, I'm sure that's going to be a no-brainer here. And what we think might be coming soon and stuff down the line, our thoughts and speculation on that. And then if you have any bullet points that you think that we might go over.
Yeah, several today. Obviously, you touched on the new dub and the new production. Obviously, there's I would say from 2016 to now, there's been actually a decent amount going on in the community, from manga developments to fan dubs to movie dubs to questions about the series long term. And now, obviously, it may not seem like huge news, but to me, it's actually relatively big news in regards to VIU, this Korean streaming service, now picking up episodes of the series and doing English subs for them. That's a huge talking point for me today that I obviously want to get your thoughts on and go over.
Now, me and Professor C have been talking for about 50 to 45 minutes so far, so there's a few things like we're going to have to retouch up on and re-ask just so it's live here for the audience. But we were talking about a few things before. One of them, we were just talking about the movies and what we think about going forward. But before I forget, I want to bring this up now. So before I bring this up with Crunchyroll, how do you feel, or what their purpose is for uploading like the first, 42 or 43 episodes? And they were taken down because of Funimation originally, and then they were put back up after Funimation lost their rights. But what do you think, like, do you have like any idea or any like purpose why you think exclusively why they put up the first 43 episodes?
I think in conjunction to a lot of what Japan was doing in their Netflix deal by doing 1 to 42 in Japan, and obviously those are beautiful remasters. If you haven't had a chance to see them, they're absolutely beautifully remastered, beautifully done. But also, Crunchyroll in Germany uploaded the first 530 or 40 episodes, I believe, went 1 to 540 in Germany. So they have a certain level of dedication to the series at this point. I do think that more will come subbed, whether that's the remainder of what
Is left.
Funimation did or where they left off. I think this new deal with VIU doing English subs is really huge, and I think that could end up on Crunchyroll at some point in the future as well.
Like, what I found really, like, the reason why I felt like something could come from this, or maybe like, they're not necessarily testing waters, but showing you this so like when this comes out type thing. I don't know. And the reason why I say this is because Case Closed, since like you said, 2016, has become very more slowly growing into the population in the Western market. Like, with the Netflix deal that they had in America, was like you have random episodes from, like, I think it was the 700s. I'm not sure which number it was. Maybe it was the 500s. It was somewhere in that range. It was just random episodes. It was just like a huge handful of them, but it still managed to get that rare 5-star rating on Netflix. And then on Crunchyroll, it's been sitting at 4.5 stars out of 5 and 5 stars. Like, it's been sitting on there like the entire time at that. And then naturally you had the dub starting, and the Blu-ray box sets, and that they're still doing that with The Darkest Nightmare to this day, where I feel like if you're still making Blu-rays, like, it has to be doing good. And on Right Stuff, it's constantly been on their best-selling page.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think the manga being here and being successful, and sorry, they're cutting my grass in the background. I don't know
I don't hear
why they
it.
keep coming around. Okay, good. You do. Sorry, it's not me. It's the apartment complex. But I think as long as each individual property does well, and I think, Crunchyroll is its own thing where,
Mm-hmm.
it depending on the viewers, how many subscribers are watching. I only subscribe to Crunchyroll to watch, Case Closed basically.
Same.
And the movies, it's the same thing. I think as long as each individual property, which is each individual film, continues to do well, I mean, I think the only thing that the logical thing for them to do is to continue to release more. And I mean, I check Right Stuff, maybe once every 3 or 4 days, and they're constantly getting in stock on the movies and selling out relatively quick, and selling out at the price point that they sell it for, which
Mm-hmm.
is a $22 Blu-ray, which not a lot of people are all that crazy to pay for, but apparently for
Exactly.
Conan, I mean, people have really,
Well,
shown up and shown out when it came to that, the movies.
like my number one catchphrase was when starting this was, you've been asking all this time. Now is time to pull out your wallets and speak up. Like you've been asking for it. If you don't pull out your wallet now, I don't know what you've been crying for. And they've delivered. They delivered with that, and I personally like that that it's selling out, that it's doing well. So that's just where I stand on that. I'm just like I'm happy that it wasn't just like we were asking for it and it just hit the floor like a bag of hammers. Like it actually it's doing well, and I was actually kind of really skeptical. Like when like I said, I got my hands on the screening version of Zero the Enforcer, and there are different clips that aren't in the final version. Like Amuro talking about the country being his girlfriend and stuff in the opening is a little bit different. But like from that first like sitting, I enjoyed myself all the way through because it was in English. I didn't have to put too much muscle memory into it. But like after it ended, I did have that thought of the belief of like, is this it though? Like, is this actually going to take off? Because at the end, I had time to reminisce with it. Like, granted, these were all their first, tries and everything else like that. But like, to this day, Agasa does not agree with me. I'm used to him. Doesn't mean I like him, but it's really weird. In the sense of like, I didn't feel like it was going to take off as strongly as it did. Like, I thought, okay, yeah, people are going to buy it. It's English, and they're selling it under the Case Closed name. But it's also just like, I didn't think it was going to take off as much as it did. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy for it because I want this to go on longevity, and I want to support it as long as it goes on. And I always told everybody, I'm like, I get it. Some people can't pay for things. You can't do this. If you're gonna support any part of this series, the smartest thing to do is to buy the episode 1 remake, because that's the trial, and I'm sure that's going to be the number one figure for them to decide what they're going to do with the series. And I wouldn't doubt if right now in time they already know that answer, they already know what they're going to do with it, and if it is doing the episodes, I would not be shocked if they've been recording them already. Like, because I feel the way that they're going to do it, if they do it, is they're going to sell them as box sets. And it's going to be like, this is all of season 1. This is all of season 2. Or do like half box sets, like where they're like, season 1, volume 1, and then season 2, volume 2. I can't see them doing like more than 2 volumes per it, just because at that point you're really banking for it. I mean, these are old, and we've done box sets before with all 5 seasons. It's like, I can't see them money grubbing, and like the only reason why this is happening is probably because Conan is, well, 1, Funimation lost their license, and 2, let's be real, the show's eventually going to end. We know who the boss is. We know who Rum is. We're coming near the end, whether it's 2 or 3 years out the line. I think it's also, this is TMS trying to extend the length of the property. Like, hey, when we're done here, we're still going to be catering to English fans. And that's another thought that I have with it. And, there are people in Japan who love the English voices too that will buy these box sets, Not naturally not from the original source, but I mean, like, it's still a way to keep the market going. It's not going to be like, and digitally, it's going to go out digitally, which they'll be able to get their hands on it. I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like this, in a way, is them just trying to extend the lifespan of Conan.
I was talking a recent interview with Kevin Rodriguez, and he had said, it would be interesting if they released episodes digitally and then did like a crowd-funded limited release box set because of how long the show is. Getting people to buy it physically, if they did something like that, I think that could work. I think he has an excellent point on that. Like a crowd-funded box set where you make 5,000-6,000 or, even something like that and then just try to sell them that way. Because I think if you're going to do the whole thing, digital is the way to go. I think if you do pockets of it, you could do a physical release and it would be just fine.
Because what my theories were, and I've mentioned this before on my podcasts, I believe, or at least have talked to people about it. I don't know where my mind ever is anymore. But my theories were of how if they were going to do it, it's either going to be all digital for the show, the actual series, or they were going to do them in chunks. I don't see a whole box set in the sense of season 1 through 29, unless, like you said, they did some crowdfunding and the whole package was like $600. Like, you know what I mean? I personally don't ever see that. And if it does all at once, it would be naturally at the very end. My two theories with how they're going to do it, if they do the all digital route, it's either going to be in one of three ways. It's either going to be release them in box-sized chunks, or release them seasonally, being like season 1, season 2, season 3, so on, or do the Netflix route. Like, I can use them taking over the Pokemon IP, for example. Like, they would just release, like, here's 12 episodes for season 1, and then the other 12 episodes will come in 3 months. I could see them taking that route too, because the way I look at it as, once again, this is TMS Entertainment, I feel, trying to extend the life of Conan. Conan's a cash cow, okay? It was going to end multiple times. Gosho told us it was going to end multiple times, and here we are. I feel like, hey, when you have a place called Conan Town, you got statues, train station, bus station, international airport, all Conan themed. I mean, it's like, come on. I personally just, I see, like, this is just them just trying to keep it alive. And I feel like they would have done it sooner if it wasn't for Funimation holding on to the IP as long as it did. And another thing that somewhat surprised me, and maybe it's just because maybe this did approach this way and no one just ever spoke of it, but I'm also surprised why in this time that Funimation never came to, why TMS never came to Funimation and did what they did with Bing Zoom and just, like, paid to keep it going instead of doing it licensed. And maybe like we were talking before, maybe it's because they already had the voices picked out and stuff like that, and they wanted to go that way. But, like, it always just made it weird to me. And, like, if they're just sitting on it doing nothing with it, I would have either tried to have bought it back, or, like, legitimately have asked Funimation to, like, they already got this far. They already have 130 episodes done. Instead of starting from scratch, they already have 6 movies. Personally, if I was in that chair, I would have just made that Western dub, the dub for, like, how Singapore has, how we now have a fully international English dub. I would have just kept the Western dub going, in my opinion. Just because, like, the Western jokes, in my opinion, yeah, sure, they were maybe written for us, but they work for everybody. It's not just like, oh, you wouldn't get this if you didn't live in America. Like, they weren't making presidential jokes or anything. Like, they were just funnier jokes for English speakers that didn't work in Japanese.
Yeah, I think TMS probably just felt a little as either there was sour grapes between the two on how the property was handled.
Yeah.
And then that Singapore dub, was more international than anything. I mean, shoot, the argument could be made, why not go get those guys and try to get, add more
Yeah.
castmates and try to prop that up
But
more.
I feel I know why they didn't go that route. It's just because they didn't have as many episodes done. Um, but like I could agree with you. Like I wouldn't have minded that either. Um,
But
but yeah.
yeah, I think ultimately, that's why I talk about this dub as really a continuation of that original Singapore work because of the original names being used and kind of I don't know, the international sense, the continuity seems to fit a little more towards the Singapore dub when you compare it with this new dub in a
Hmm.
lot of ways, and
It,
I,
I
you
feel
know,
that. Yeah.
and I get the sense when I watch both, versions that this is a continuation of that original 52 episode work. And that's, I mean, I want nobody to ever mistaken that as a knock on the
No.
Funimation dub, because it is absolutely not. The Funimation dub has its own continuity, its own universe, its own names. It
Exactly.
feels like more of a running story than anything I can see in the movies now and anything like
Yeah,
that.
and a huge part of me that I have with the Funimation dub, like I can like where you brought up a continuity, like it's its own universe, it's its own thing. But sometimes they handle things differently or they word things differently to give it more impact. And to this day, I live in a universe where up to the first 123 episodes, because that's really how many episodes Funimation dubbed, they just broke certain episodes into two-parters that weren't originally two-parters.
Right.
Um, and I live in the continuity of the world where I'm like the first 123 episodes and then the Japanese dub. Because the way that they word some of the biggest moments in Conan history don't hit me as hard as they do in the English dub. Like, for example, when Conan tells Harley, if you corner a criminal with your deductions and then you let that, uh, commit suicide, you know better than a murderer yourself. And it didn't hit me as hard in the Japanese. Like, it just, the way that it's worded was more, as you say, literal.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that emotional impact behind it, and a lot of those memories, like when I go back and I think of like when they re-show something happening, I immediately revert to the Funimation version of that quote, and then piece it together with that and feel that impact. Like I can't. So I agree, like it's on its own universe, but like the universe timeline I live in is like I've connected the two, and you could see all the stitching that I made to do that. When I think about it, and that's just where I lay with it.
Well, and it's nostalgic, and I think for a lot
Yeah,
of people, they watched it on television, they grew up with it. I mean, Funimation held a license to this thing from 2003 to 2018, and then of course we saw it in May of 2004 is when we first started to get
hmm
looks at it, and so people grew up with this. I mean, nostalgic. People prefer certain voices over others, especially now. But I think if the roles were reversed in a lot of ways, we have to think
exactly.
about there are some kids that are going to grow up on this version of the show that will not feel the same way about the old version in
Yeah,
English the way we do, and that's because of the nostalgic factor, and
yeah.
this is how they're used to hearing it, and that's
Um,
what they're going to connect with a little more, most likely, um, with this new audience coming in too. And I what I do hope is that the audience that is buying the movies now are the people that hung around, the first time around and
yeah,
continued to buy the manga. Hopefully those people are the ones that are going out and buying the films now, because I think that the manga audience is really what kept, so
yeah.
much going over here.
Because the mangas are constantly on the top selling page in America, which is good. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
keep it going. But the one thing I do like about Bang Zoom is they are getting nothing but better as they go. The kids, I have a love hate relationship with them. I think it's more love than hate. I call them the three DC misfits. That's just our joke. But like even them, like they sound like the perfect. Like I hear Funimation and I hear they're Japanese. And George was the slowest one getting there. He just had this rock monster voice, and now he sounds like, I think he sounds more like Funimation than anything else now. And like their most recent thing that they were in, and I just like how they're just getting closer and closer to sounding really good. Like they sounded good from the start, in my opinion. But I mean, like, they're all sounding a whole lot better. The only one, and I've said this a million times, is Agasa, and I don't know why. It just rubs me the very wrong way. I'm used to it. I can live with it for the entirety and not hate it, but I don't like it either.
Yeah, especially seeing how Chuck Powers and Bill Flynn kind of approach the characters in English. It is a little odd. But
in his
you know,
character description, he is a Japanese Italian descent. Like, he is. I mean, look at his nose. The first episode, he was at an Italian restaurant. Okay, like, he's Italian. And it's just like, I just don't understand where this voice came from. Like, even in the Japanese, and maybe you gotta listen a little bit harder, but you can hear it, and he just doesn't sound right. I think if he wasn't Italian, okay, I don't think I'd have any problem with it. I'd be like, okay, cool, you know, like this voice. It's just, I think it's just hearing, like how you said, every character portray him up to this point has kept that as one key factor in his voice, and this guy didn't. And maybe, like I said, it wasn't his choice. Because one thing with Japanese development, what a lot of people don't know, is a lot of times they don't understand what the hell you're even saying. They just hear how it sounds. They don't know what you said, what you meant, but they hear you. Once again, using Sonic, and I'm only going to use it for a 25-second at most. Trying not to bring him up because this is not what this is for. I love Ryan Drummond as Sonic, and I feel like he's the only Sonic. And when he was recording first Sonic, and he was doing like letter noises, and he goes like huh, 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 you know, and then in Japanese they're like, no, that sounds bad, you can't do that. It's huh, huh, and it's like, no, we don't sound like, we don't do that. I'm like, you know, it's not like Americans don't grunt like that when we we don't but to them, that's what it is. And maybe, you know, since they had a higher hand in this, they didn't like, maybe they did try attacking it with the Italianness behind it, and maybe they just didn't like it. Like I said, like a lot of people don't know how the Japanese, when they have their hands in it, they're very serious, and they use a lot of what they know as the correct way to do it. So that was just a fun fact. I don't know if you even knew that. I mean, naturally you didn't know that about Sonic, but I mean, like, how Japanese companies, when they have a hand in it, it comes very close to the Japanese product. And like you could see with this dub, with how a lot of the characters sound and everything else, you can feel the Japaneseness within it. And that's pretty much the only stance I wanted to bring up on that. Like, and maybe that's not a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be direction, it could be, you know, voice choice. I mean, to me, he sounds like Dan Green playing Dr. Agasa, or like Yugi playing Dr. Agasa almost from Yu-Gi-Oh! And, you know, but that's the choice they went with, and I mean, he doesn't do a bad job.
Like I said, at least I don't hate it. Like, I hated it at first. Like, when I watched it at first, I really hated it. And I think it was just me coming to terms with, like, what the heck is this? Why did you change this?
Yeah.
But, like, after watching the episode 1 remake, once I got it in my hands, you know, the first fully finished product, because when I got my hands on Zero the Enforcer, it wasn't the final product. It was, you know, there are still changes to be made. But, like, when I got my hands on it, I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I didn't want it to end. And it felt like it was a 3-hour film, just because I was enjoying myself so much. And I don't hate it now. And at least that's how I live with it. Like, I don't hate it. I don't mind it. It's still a good voice. It's just not what I picture coming out of his mouth.
Right, for Agasa. Yeah.
But every other character, to me, is perfect. I feel my biggest sigh of relief is when I heard Sherry. I was just like, okay, I don't have to uprage. I'm not mad. You know, everything's fine in the world. And then shortly after, at the very end, we heard Akai's voice, and I'm just like, we're good. we're good. I don't have to worry about a thing. We're perfect. Because Akai's my favorite character. If you didn't know.
Yeah, mine too.
Hands down. Conan, love the guy. He's in my top 5 somewhere. Okay. But Akai is my favorite character, hands down. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I love how the FBI has. Same thing with Bourbon. Like, they've become more forefront characters. They're not characters that just appear every now and then. They're like main cast. And I really like how they made that change for like Red and Black and going forward. It was just like, okay, yeah, these people were cool when they showed up. Now, what if they were here all the time? And that's the one thing I like about them. Jodie is probably my second favorite character. And I swear to God, it's no FBI bias. It is legit coincidence. But
yeah.
And she had a good voice too, from what I remembered. So, and me, as long as all my favorite characters sound good, Agasa was probably in my top 15 favorite characters. So it's just like, it's not that big of a deal to me, as long as you mastered all the characters I care about. Another thing, like Kogoro, I didn't like him at first in the sense of I'm used to what Kogoro sounds like. I love Kogoro's voice, and I think they hired the perfect person. This person voices the announcer in Super Smash Brothers and is also Joker from Persona 5. I think he's really good. He's grown on me. I like him as Richard. He sounds good. It's not usually what a Richard would sound like, but it's grown on me, and I actually like it.
Yeah, and I mean they did a good job of matching the Japanese voice. Although I will say that Akira, the first Kogoro, is still in Japanese. He's still my favorite.
Yeah, and I feel that's more so who they're trying to hit.
Yeah,
with Sander being Kogoro, because like you could hear when the split changes, and I love the new Japanese Kogoro. There's nothing wrong with that. I believe he started it in the late 500s or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
And I like them both, but you can both tell, and I feel this is when Kogoro changed. Like, and I brought this up in a past podcast. I don't know if you watched any of those. I know you've watched them with Joe B, but like, if you've noticed, like roughly around that change or shortly after, when we got the new Kogoro, he stopped laughing with his tongue out. Like a lot of his aneurysms changed. Like he no longer does that. And like when I saw that in the episode 1 remake in 2016, it somewhat made me feel good. Like it's like I miss this. Why don't we do this anymore?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a modern version of Case Closed, and then there is what there is now. And the part that bothers me with this, and this is more getting to the Japanese side of things than it is the dub, you could tell when the new era started. Mind you, this show still takes place in the late 90s, early 2000s. It still takes place in that time frame. But now they have smartphones. And you can say, sure, this was the beginning of smartphones. But when a murder happens by a selfie stick, I lost my marbles. To me, the episode is not part of the canon. It bothers me. I think it was a TV original too, so it's okay. But like, I just don't understand. Like, I get it. The show's been going on for so long. It's hard to keep up with the continuity. Like, in all the movie openings, sometimes he's hit by a bat. Sometimes it's a metal bat. Sometimes it's a pipe, like a stick. It's never fully continuity of. I get it. When you have a franchise that long, you're bound to make a mistake. But it's just like, I also feel it comes with modernizing it. They went a bit too far. But I also get it. Like, you gotta keep in touch with new audiences too. Like, if I was a kid of this generation and I was watching it and I was just like, bro, he still got a flip phone. I get.
Yeah, it's the Phantom Thief appearance is one that sticks out to me, where he pulls out that big ass phone, pulls the antenna out.
Oh, I love that though.
And then
like
you have
I've never really. I mean, look,
phone.
I made a phone call from a phone car before. I mean, a phone call from like a car phone before. Okay, but I've never held a phone like that, and like I've never thought one to think of it. And maybe that's because you just picture a walkie-talkie and move on with your life, But no, I agree, and it gives it the charm. I'm sorry. In my opinion, it gives it the charm. I don't care if everyone never thought of it as a walkie-talkie. That was my first thought of it. I didn't think twice. But like, where I'm just like, it gives it the charm though. Like, if you ever go back and like you said, maybe it's nostalgia, sure, but it gives it the charm. Like when you go back and you look at these older things, like I said time and time again. Like when I first got this show, I was looking at the thumbnails of it, and I was just like, this kid with the big ears, I can't. And now it's a charm. Like, you know, the ears have thinned out now. And now when I go back and watch it, I'm just like, that's just like the 90s charm. And I feel like if the show takes place in the 90s, I get it. You got to thin it out now. We're in the, late 2000s here. I get it. But it's just, to me, I just feel like too modernizing it is too much. But the one thing that gives me faith about the modernization of the series that it has taken since the 600s, like heavily, that's when like the show started its modern storyline. A lot of things that are happening now in the series started at that exact moment from the tennis court to now. Everything links back to there. I feel that's when Gosho sat down and said, okay, we're writing a real story for ending this at that point. And I feel like the one thing that gives me hope about this, mind you, I haven't fully seen movie 24, so my thoughts can change. Movie 24 is the first film done in the era by this person who's taken over the Conan directing scenes and stuff like that. Now, this is his first film. And from the trailers and everything, this looks like to be the best film so far. So I feel like if this does well and he does keep at the helm the way that he's doing, I got high hopes for it, and I'm glad that the show ended in this era instead of a very classic era, because to me, like I said, I even put this above everything I've ever seen in the classics. Like it's captured me in the sense I like how this looks, I like how it sounds, I like the modernization of modern anime in this moment, because it's more action packed. Like Conan back then, it was good, but it wasn't action packed. And so I feel like if you're gonna modernize it, at least do it this way, because to me it feels like, what if Conan ever got a reboot? This is what it feels like, and I feel like it's done right. So I don't know what your thoughts are on in terms of, or maybe you may not have even noticed. Some people, I'm sure, have watched it in one stretch and it's just like, it's all the same to me. I don't feel any difference. But to me, I feel it very segregated. Like I feel the beginning is Funimation, the middle is me getting used to what they've been used to in the Japanese since the 100s, and then the 600s it changing for everybody. Because everybody towards the 600s it changed for everybody. The animation changed, voices have changed, and story has changed. There's actually a full-blown story now. So what are your thoughts on like the branching of Conan? Like, do you feel it as all one straight show? There's like not much modernization changing, or do you feel like, can you feel the separations too?
I could feel the changes, but I felt them more in the 700s more than anything, because after the Clash of Red and Black, some things kind of calmed down for a little bit, it seemed like, for the story. But then in the 600s, I mean, from 600 to 700, to me, I'll be honest, it was kind of brutal. I mean, it was not very interesting for about 100 episodes there. Yeah. And then about 700, it picked up. It picked up pretty good.
But you can see, like I said, it all starts at the tennis court. And I don't want to spoil things for anybody, but you and me are both caught up. This aren't really spoiler-heavy things, so I'm just going to bring it up really shortly. Like the tennis court, when Conan says, I'm Holmes' apprentice, to now are being brought back up to this day. That's when Sierra came into the picture during that arc. Even though she wasn't there, it all started there. And, with Conan on TV is what started all these arcs now. Like, it started Sierra chasing him. It started... where was it gonna go from that? It started with Vermouth and Shinichi. Vermouth looking and Bourbon looking into Shinichi and Yakusu Kudo, looking into them upon Rum's request, because that led into the high school arc, which led into everything being, stuff like that. And it all starts there in that one episode. Like, I don't know what episode that even is. I know it's in the 600s. But I feel like what they were doing at that point, because I agree, the 700s is where it picked up. It was bland to me, but I feel like they were just dropping the red herrings of their story. Because you can't just, like, whip the story in our face. So I can agree with you with that, though. Like, the 600s were, and to me, the only part of the 600s that stick out in my mind that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this and I enjoyed this, was that episode of the Holmes Revelations, and then literally the last episode of the 600s that led into the 700s that tied into the Beltree Express.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you.
Express, yeah, I enjoyed that series a lot.
And you could tell that's when real animation really started to change. Because I don't know if you've ever noticed. I have it linked together like a movie. The Beltree Express series. So it's like episode 700 to 704 or something like that. And it plays like a movie. It was some re-released version. Like, there's no credits, no cuts. It's just the doors. And it's like a perfectly streamlined released version, like movie version of the series. And you could tell, like, just by looking at Kogro's mustache. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, and I notice this every time I watch. His mustache changes like 3 times. Like, it's a curly one, it's straight, it doesn't have the 2 lines at the end. And I'm like, how did you guys do this? Like, how do you watch this as one single piece and not notice, like, this guy has 3 different mustaches and hasn't shaved or combed it? Like, and you could tell that's really when the animation really started to change, because I feel like they were still dabbling on things at that point. Like, they changed something, didn't notice that they changed it, like, as a whole piece, and just left it there. So, like, if, like, maybe, like, sometime if you ever just want to sit back and relax and rewatch that arc and just pay attention to his mustache. I recommend that to anybody who's at that point or maybe haven't gotten to that point yet. Like, when you get there, just, it's a fun game to me. Just watch his mustache and, like, see how much it changes. Like, I get it, like, if it was a little bit different or missing the lines, but, like, at one point it was literally a curly mustache. I don't understand how that happened. But it's just, like, some interesting things at that point. That is very when Conan started to change its era, and you could notice it, like a sore thumb. But, like, to me, and maybe it's kind of more observant that way at the beginning when I was watching the Funimation dub, I used to, and during the beginning of watching the Japanese, I used to pause at certain points and try to figure out the case before Conan opened it, And a lot of times they feed you the information that Conan doesn't even know, and you're like, okay, it's this person, and then they use it against you for it not being that person. But, like, maybe that's because I was more involved in that way. I wasn't just, like, watching it. I tried to be a part of it, and maybe that's why it stuck out to me more. But, like, to me, Conan is a very segregated, sure, it's all one story, it's all the same characters, but to me, like, the eras are, like, their own package. Sure, each package continues the story, but, like, they are, like, in their own little universe to me. Like, I feel like you brought it up earlier. I don't know if that was before or after we started recording, but, like, I feel like it is its own each modern is its or each era is its own thing. Like,
Own
it continues the story, but, like, it is different, and I like it. There's nothing wrong with it. I like where the series is now. I think I'm more involved with the series than I am before. I don't feel that charm and love that I used to, but I am definitely more involved with it because there's more story to it. Now, every single time, something simple, like, I will binge this show. I'll wait, like, a few months, and then when we get, like, 14 episodes or something, I'll jump back in. And the whole last season was, like, 99% TV originals. So, like, I have 14 episodes that I watched straight. And
Yeah.
I was bored. I was just like, yeah. And at the final episode that I was watching of those 14, was what's his name? Kurita picks up the phone and mouths the word bourbon to Bourbon on the phone, and I literally stood up, had my hand on my head, and I was just in shock in front of the TV. And I'm just like, when you can have me 14 episodes and boredom, or not necessarily boredom, but like, this ain't doing nothing for me, to getting me to stand up in shock, like, what the hell just happened? I feel like that's the one charm that this show has that nothing had before this arc started, like with the 600s going forward. Because now the show always has something lingering in the background that they have like 3 or 4 mysteries always at a time going on that nobody has the answers for, that they will slowly sprinkle feed you. And I feel like that's one thing that the show didn't have before. And that's probably another reason why I segregate it. It's just like they're constantly feeding you something all the time. Even if it's open-ended information for 200 episodes, like The Clash of Red and Black to the Scarlet Arc. But they're constantly feeding you something that keeps you wondering. And I feel like that's one magic of the show that I think is better than anything they've ever done before it.
Yeah, and the filler really doesn't bother me all that much. I understand it, and I would say a general fan, so I'm okay with most all. I mean, people are really like, oh man, the story, I just want it to end now, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I'd rather just continue on and going. It doesn't bother me, and as long as it makes money, it will.
Yeah, like I don't mind the filler, okay. But like what you gotta understand is this show is almost at 1,011 episodes, right? And when you can actively say the show is 48% filler by math, which is funny because Apotoxin 4869, but when the show is constantly kept with this exact number, then 48% filler, it kind of comes down to the point when you're like, so you're telling me only like around 500 of this show is actually like, I mean, to me, it's all canon, in some universe, but it's like story detrimental. Like, only like 500 of this is kind of where it gets to be, okay, that's a problem. Especially with the last season. It may have bumped that number to 49. Literally, 99% of that season was just filler. But I just like to use the number 48 because it's not 50-50. It keeps me sane somehow. So I keep it at the 48 that it was. But, like, when you're at 48% filler, I get it to be a problem. And, like, when I watch 14 episodes in a row and nothing story happens, that's a problem, in my opinion. But I live in the same boat as you, where I'm like, I don't want the show to end. I want the show to go on for another 10 years. But also on the same boat, I'm just like, I know who the boss is. And I knew who the boss was before the boss was announced. I somewhat knew the relation between Vermouth and the boss before anything was even said. I had spirals upon spirals, and maybe it's because I took the show too seriously at the point, but like, I get it. Like, I want closure. I don't want to go another 10 years, stick in this constant loop where you're slowly feeding me now, and the show is still like 15 episodes at a point filler. But like, they've recently been really good with it. Like, we've had a lot of really good manga episodes coming out recently. So like right now they're constantly bringing up Scotch's cell phone, and they're bringing that back into the mix. And both times had me shocked when they brought it up both times. I'm just like, thank you for bringing this up. It gives me hope. And sometimes it's just those little things that I need, and where I can feel like, hey, if this show went on for another 5 to 6 years, I could live with it, because each time they bring that up, I have that hope, like, oh man, we're getting back into this again. I can't wait to re-explore this. And that's the one thing I like about it being stretched out, is where it could, let something go for a while, and you can enjoy something new, but when they bring something back, you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. How are they going to use this? I remember this from 200 episodes ago. And that's the one thing I do like about it being stretched out. I do feel like the show is going to end soon, with it being, with them showing the stuff that they've been showing. With Gosho saying that he wanted to end the show, and then being sick and COVID. I feel like if COVID wasn't a thing, I feel like the show would have ended in 2022. Straight up. I still feel like now it's maybe 2023, 2024. But I do think like the show is coming to its end, and it makes me wonder, how are they gonna do it? Are they gonna speed the show up and try to get it coincide with the manga, or is the ending gonna happen in the manga and then everybody has to avoid every ounce of the internet for 4 to 6 months at a time until we get the final ending? That's the one thing that scares me about the show and its longevity is, what if we do go to like 2027 theoretically, and we've spent 2.5 decades watching this show or so, and then out of nowhere an article pops up, thumbnail and title spoiler, just right there, everything that how the show just ended. And that's the one fear I have with this show going on as long as it goes. The longer it goes, if you get spoiled with that ending, the harder it's gonna hurt. And like you and me are in the biggest jeopardy of this, because not only are we constantly searching Conan stuff, we're highly in the community. That stuff's in our search engine. Okay, like that.
Yeah.
Not if it's not a fan saying it, it's and everyone's gonna be talking about it. They don't have to be a Conan fan to talk about it. It's gonna be, hey, this show that went on for almost 3 decades. Guess what? That show ended today, and blah blah blah. And that's the one fear I have with the show, where it's just like, sure, I enjoyed this ride immensely, but I fear like it's just one day it's just gonna slap us all in the face. It's like, well, this is what you get for not being a casual fan, like, you gotta know everything, and that's the one fear I have with this show. I don't know what I'm gonna do when the show comes to the end, especially if they announce prior, like, this is the last volume, and we know, like, there's still a lot of things unanswered. I don't know how I'm gonna avoid it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But like, that's just the one fear I have, because if this show gets spoiled, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I really doubt it at this point. I mean, the show has so many people working on it. It's handled with so much love and care by the team that makes it. I don't see that as a concern. I mean, I do see when it does end, I mean, something similar to a Clash arc where it's, a 14, 15 episode epic.
I feel like it's going to
ending.
end on that, like, route. Like, I feel like we're going to, I'm not going to say it's going to be 15 parts. I'm just saying I feel like it's going to be, more than the 4 that we ever get.
I just hope that they do something similar to that. I think a movie would be the wrong way to go, because I think you're not going to fit everything you want
in a film.
into a film.
Also, a lot of people don't consider the films to be canon, which I can agree with, but movie 20, sue me, is canon. That's when they start introducing rum and Kurosawa. To me, that is the only movie where I could say, I can agree with you on the rest, but that movie, to me, is part of the plot.
I just don't know in a movie if you're going to get everything in there.
No, I agree.
To tie the story up. I mean, because they could do a film, Tiger Conan, The End, or True Clash, or, the organization. But the problem is that you have so much more of an opportunity to tie that together through the manga and the running story, which is the series.
Yeah.
I think that there's got to be, if you're Go Show or TMS, you've got to be a little apprehensive about ending it, because look how well the property's doing right now. Do you really want to end it?
I feel that would be a slap to the face too. I really feel like the manga and episode would have to air on the same day. Like,
I don't think
if he knew, like,
happen. Yeah.
I know, but like, or at least at the start of the arc. So, like, for example, like, let's say he knows this is the last volume, okay, and we're starting an arc. Like, those will both release on the same day, and then it's your responsibility to be like, okay, I have to avoid the internet for 15 weeks, or at least like try to avoid the Conan side of the internet for 15 weeks. I can go on YouTube and I get thumbnails from episodes that I haven't seen yet, or that aren't even out yet, and people are like talking about like the manga and stuff, and I'm like, we're 4 to 6 months always behind you, and you get the whole thing at once when you get it in the book. Like, for example, like the one case that I was really wrapped up in, just hearing about it, just seeing like a picture of it, was that hose murder case where the guy was killing people with hoses. And I was waiting for that to get animated, because I don't really read the manga. I try to keep it with the show, and maybe that's what we all have to do come the time. When the ending is near, just read the manga. That might come down to be the case in point. But I don't want to end it that way. It's just like when you started this whole journey this way, it's just kind of hard to be like, I got to read it on a piece of paper. Like, I like it because, like, the music, the suspense, the action, you don't get that. And even Gosho himself has stated in those exact words of, you do lose that with the manga. Like, when Conan kicks a soccer ball, okay, I get 2 frames of that in the manga. When he kicked it and when it hits the face. So I get it, but that's just how I feel with the series. I do fear the ending of it a lot.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. I think that they'll handle that right. I think it's going to take a while to get there, though, just because of how well the property's doing. And if you're, now promoting, international, dubbing and everything like that, and you're trying to make that component work, I think that the show continuing is a big
deal.
A big deal to that too. And I think when you look at it, there's so many, I think, dynamics for fans here in the U.S. that make a lot of sense as to why it's doing well here now. I think, the Funimation dub is a big one where people, really did gravitate to those voices and that story. And I think with the disappointment of where it ended, had they just gotten to that, arc, or that 129 episode, I think a lot of things would have been different, because that's a real ramp up in the story right there for people to kind of jump in. But then when the series left, people like me, I feel bad for people that really don't like subtitles, because, and I was one of them, I only did it because of the series. I started to watch 124 probably 4 or 5 different times, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. And about halfway through, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do it. It sounds so different. I hate this. And I think I feel so bad for people that just couldn't, in their own way, continue on, and probably, dropped off. And now for the new dub coming back, it's got to be great for them to jump back in this way. And I think ultimately, when you look at the series, people like the Translation Project, people that promoted the show subbed for people who could get into it. I mean, thank God for them, because there was a way for some people to continue in keeping up with the story in that way if they got used to the subs. And then you had people like Infinity coming in and doing really good fan dubs, and then our fan dub in there too, picking up where it left off at 124. For some of those people who didn't want to watch 124, kind of got eased into, okay, well, there's a couple of different ways. You got some fan dub groups that do some episodes, so you can at least continue to watch in that way.
Like with the show, like you said, with me trying to get back into it, I binged season 1 through what you can call 5 because it wasn't finished. I binged that. Like, besides going to school, homework, eating, and chores, I was 15 or 14 at the time, right in that range. I binged that show completely. I could not put it down. I was addicted. And it was funny because, like I said, I was going to delete it when my friend left. I was like, no. And I fell in love with it. And I always hated everything police before it, and now I have a degree in criminal justice. But I agree. Like, when I sat down trying to watch the Japanese, when I'm like, okay, let's do this, I couldn't do it. It took me a very long time to get back into it. I'm talking months. I couldn't do it. And when I finally did, and I tried so many times, and I couldn't do it. When I finally did it, I'd watch it in slow chunks, and then slowly, probably around shortly after Hybero. So it wasn't that long, because Hybero was life. Once I got to where Hybero got more acclimated with the story, I picked up from there all the way to 700 and was it 42 or something like that? 47, something like that. That's where the show was at the time. And I watched it like as if it was a dub. I watched it straight, as back to that habit. It just you just got to get used to it. And like you said, I could not watch dubbed. I meant subbed at the time. I just couldn't do it. And now I rarely watch dub, and it's not because I don't like a dub. I'm just used to it. Where I'm like, if it's not there or if it's not finished, I'd rather just watch the subs. So I can watch it all at once. But I agree, some dubs are bad. Like I love Clannad, the after story. I'm not that huge a fan of Clannad, but the after story is great. And I tried watching the dub for that, and they pronounced the main character's name wrong, and it drives me up the wall, so I can't do it. It's just like little things like that. I mean, it's because I'm a little bit like OCD, and I'm like, I can't. But to show off like how badly I didn't like The Crimson Love Letter, I didn't think it was a good movie. I think it's the worst movie out of them all. Joe B agreed with me on that, and we both couldn't watch it. We just couldn't get into it. It just was not a thing. And when the dub came out with it, the dubbed version, it was I tried watching that movie, not exaggeration, 15 times. Couldn't do it. And I watched it with the dub because I was like, hey, it's interesting, the new dub. I want to hear their voices, And Harley had the huge, role. So I was like, okay. And I will agree, the climax was good, but every Conan climax movie, it's always good. But like just like the case in itself just did nothing for me. But I would say that movie is the equivalent to me starting the Japanese version of the show. I had no interest. It did nothing for me. And I don't know how much you liked that movie. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad movie. Like, it's a good film on its own. But when you tell me, like, hey, this is the Conan film, I don't feel it.
I liked it a lot better than 22, I can tell you that much.
I don't know. I liked Zero and the Enforcer, but I only liked it dubbed. I had a huge throw with the dub. I mean, it's just a dub magic. I don't know. Because, like I said, high climax, great. But, like, the rest of the movie was just like a slow courtroom case. And it's sure. But I enjoyed the dub version of it. Dubbed movies, like, Funimation and now, that movie is pretty high on my list. But I can agree. I didn't really enjoy it that much. But, and when I watched it originally, and a lot of these movies, even if I really enjoyed the original, I've enjoyed it 2 times more watching it with the dub. And I'm not even a dub person anymore. Case Closed is the only anime I still support or want dubbed. It is the only show that I care about. I mean, like, everyone liked Death Note, stuff like that, sure. But I feel like in terms of like modern anime that's out now, there's no show where I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see that dubbed. I'm not like that. It's literally just Case Closed. And I won't say that I think the original movie 22, like Japanese, is worse than the Crimson Love Letter, because the Japanese version I couldn't do at all. At least I could sit through the Zero the Enforcer. I don't know what it was. And because I liked movie 7, which is practically like a precursor to this movie. But like I just couldn't get into it. It's not a bad film. To me, it's a Japanese case solving film that is good. It's just not Conan good. And you'll never catch me watching another detective drama, most likely. I've tried a few of them, can't get into them, and maybe that's my problem. It came off to me like this is a detective drama mystery with Conan characters being the faces. That's how it felt to me. Maybe I'm being too hard on it. I don't know, but that's how I stand with that movie. To me, it's the weakest Conan movie. Maybe you could put it above the movie that was the furthest stretch, which is what do I call it? I can't think of it. It's the one with the capsules where they go into virtual reality. I love that movie.
Phantom of Baker Street.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. I like it. I enjoy myself. It's a great movie. But maybe conceptual, okay, let's step into reality here for a minute. It's better on that standpoint. Like, if I'm trying to show it to somebody who doesn't know anything about the show, you wouldn't want to show them that movie because then they think, wow, this show's a real leap in logic. Then sure, but that's like the only instance where I could put it above that. Because I actually like Phantom of Baker Street. It's a really good movie. I've watched that one to death. But the one other thing I like about Conan, in the sense of when I tell everybody, like, hey, this show, you know, how popular it is in Japan with the airports and everything like this, I also tell them it's also more accurate than NCIS, CSI, and people look at you with a raised eyebrow like, what? Fun fact, the FBI hate the NCIS, stuff like that, with the way that they do the show. They don't share any information with them. So everything that they do is just from a script standpoint. Same thing with the police. They want nothing to do with it. Gosho, on the other hand, they're inviting him to the police station to sit in the chair, look at all these files, and then Gosho tries all these things himself. Like the fish tank episode, like, can you really hide things underwater with the fish tank? Can you really kill somebody across the street with a fishing pole? You know, could you really lock a door with a piece of tape? He does all these things to make sure that they work. So I'm like, unless if you want to count Conan kicking a soccer ball to an extreme proportion, I'd say that's like the only thing that's like not really logical about the show. Like, I feel like this show is more realistic than actual crime shows on TV. Like, if you don't count those little moments where you're like, okay, there's no way you really did that. But, like, the actual murders themselves are, like, 100% possible. And they're never really repeated crimes. And they're never suicide. We all know that. Suicides only happen, like, 3 or 4 times in the series. And that's the one thing that I think about the show as a real monument to its character.
Yeah, and I'm just looking this up because I cannot remember the name of, and this is why I enjoyed The Phantom of Baker Street, and this is actually the thing I had watched it for, oddly enough, was the first voice of Booker Kudo, actually, who passed away from the
okay.
Randy Tallman. So they had replaced him with they had his new voice that was going to be featured in this one. John Swasey is who it says here.
Oh my god, I'm friends with him on Facebook. I didn't know that he voiced Booker.
Yeah, in Phantom of Baker Street. Yeah.
Oh my god,
and,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he, I guess once Randy Tallman passed away, they had to recast to John Swasey for Phantom of Baker Street. And I watched Phantom of Baker Street because I'm like, I really want to hear, you know, if he does the character justice, because really, I mean, Randy Tallman
I like
passed away in like 07 or 08, so I mean,
I say I like both of them. They both sound really good. I didn't notice. I thought it was just the same character evolving. That is so interesting. I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna be like, you voice Booker? Question mark. Like, I didn't know that. That is so interesting. But I also never really talked case close with the guy, so maybe that's why. That is interesting. I did not know that.
He did a great job. I mean, I don't know if he understood how big of a role that was just because he was replacing somebody, but I thought, you know, in a lot of ways it was a great homage to that original actor, and the performance was solid.
I'm gonna have more respect for him now when I watch the not Swayze. I mean, I have respect for him, okay, but I meant like for like the English dub. I always liked Booker's voice. He has that, I don't know how to describe it. He does sound like an author, like in his voice. Like he has that, you know, how authors talk through a microphone and, you know, they have like that click in their voice. You can really hear that with him. But I didn't know he died.
Yeah, November 20th of 07 is what I've got pulled up here. I just Googled him. I think he had
interesting.
I think he had a heart attack or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, so John Swasey's performance in Phantom of Baker Street to me was like the ultimate, you know, homage or tribute.
You know, I don't know if I know Yusaku had one line in the 2016 remake, and his mind isn't coming to me. Maybe it is close to the original. I don't remember. But if you were able to take that clip from Baker Street, and you told me that was the Bang Zoom voice actor, I believe it, because it just sounds like he sounds with that quality. Like, he did sound a little bit different, but I just took that, you know, because this movie is released in 2010. I just took that as like an involvement of the character. Like, you know, this is what he sounded like after re-recording for so long. That's how I took it originally. And to me, he sounded more modern than the other characters. To me, and I felt like that he would have been a perfect fit for Booker. For the Bing Zoom dub, the one that is now, I know it's not bad because I heard it and I didn't. I remember I didn't never said, oh, I don't like this, so I know it wasn't bad, but I physically could not hear the voice in my head.
It was the same guy who does Akai in Bang Zoom. Keith Silverstein
Was it?
He does
Okay.
he does Yasuko / Booker, and he does Akai.
Okay. I know he did Akai, but I didn't know if he did Booker or not.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to listen to that after this. I have it naturally, so after this I might pull it up because now it's bothering me. I have no clue what Booker sounds like in the new dub. Granted, he only had one encounter. It was just them trying to scare. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, but go back.
And I am looking.
Go back on that Conan is kidnapped case, and you'll hear Randy Tallman doing Booker Kudo, and then of course before that Joe Murray had done Booker in the.
Yeah, I still haven't watched those episodes. I just asked you for them because I wanted them for my collection, and I remember downloading them at one point, and I was like, ooh, 1 gigabyte, kind of steep, and so I didn't do it. And then now the episodes to today are like, 2 episodes is a gig, and I'm like, even when you download at 720p. And so now I'm just like, all right, I bit the bullet.
Well, now I'm going back on the Japan Netflix remasters, and I'm syncing the Singapore dub to those first 42. Of the first 42 I have, I've been syncing the Singapore dub to the new remasters. So I've done 5 episodes with the new remasters. And I don't know, hopefully Netflix does another pickup, because then I can do the rest of what I have.
I have every episode. I'm only missing like 3 or 4, and that's only because they were really stupid. And they were TV originals. So that's why I didn't feel bad either. Like the puppet one with the creepy puppet. I don't do puppets. No, thank you. I have and then I have like the zombie one. Those are the only ones I did not download. And I think I now do it the zombie one. So I think it's just that puppet one.
Yeah.
But I just it felt that was too much for me, and I'm like, I'm good. But I literally have every single episode, and I try to keep it that way because I'm just like, I get it. I still watch it on Crunchyroll, so I still support it, but I download them because, you never know when you're going to need it for editing purposes, number one. And then number two, it's also just like, I want to one day have the entire collection. And look, if you gave me an official way to buy it Japanese with subs, I would, but you don't, so...
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Well, and I'm okay. I'm okay if they don't go back and do the series in English. That'd be cool if they,
if they do the show dubbed, I'm gonna buy it. I'm not gonna just download it. Like, I at least buy them, and then if I do see it somewhere, I will download it. But like, I do want to support the series. So, for example, I have everything that they have ever released for the new English dub. Like, if it has a Blu-ray, I bought it. If it was digital only, I rented it on Amazon. Because the downloads don't come out right away either, and I want to watch it right away. So I'm going to buy it on Amazon, digitally first. But, for rewatching purposes, making it easier, I'm going to download it if it's there. But I'm also, going to, not support it, because I want it to succeed. And like I told everybody, I'm like, if you can only buy one, at least buy the trial, because if you don't, we're most likely not going to get, the series dubbed. And I would like to get the show dubbed, and the only reason why I'm supporting it, when you're like, well, I know that you like it and whatnot, and it's just like, but you can also just watch it for free, and if it flops. But to me, I enjoy it more dubbed. I've come to learn that with the movies, and I get more out of it. I catch things I didn't notice the first time, and it's wonderful background noise. And if you get, let's say, 500 episodes out of the 1,000, because the show's 48% filler, and let's say we get 500 episodes, that's 500 episodes plus the first 130 that you could just put on at any time as background noise, and that's another thing I like about the show. It's wonderful background noise. Like, I could be at work, let's say, not necessarily here, unless I'm doing something specific where I could have a headphone in, but I could be just working and have a headphone in and listen to the show, and I'm not bored. I'm not like I don't know what's not going on. It's so vocally well illustrated that I've watched a lot of this show, like rewatching it, just vocal only, and like you can almost watch at least maybe just the Funimation dub. I haven't tried with the Bang Zoom stuff yet since they're just the movies, but like you could easily watch this series as an audiobook. And I don't know if you ever tried doing that, just using it as background noise and literally just not watching the picture. But like it works, and that's the one thing I like about this show, and that's another reason why I want to support it in English, because one, it helps me with my, yes, I already have my degree, but like it does nothing more but sharpen your skills. You, when rewatching episodes and not noticing something the first time, or just rewatching again, seeing how it works, you gain like the realization of how this happened, and it just sharpens your skills even more, and eventually you could use that to your real life, like, you know, on a case type thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I've never seen, I don't think we'll ever see another show again that uses a piano wire so often in merch.
Right, though?
I've seen that one quite a bit, locker room stuff.
Like,
Although some of my favorite cases are the stadium cases. I very much enjoy those.
oh, okay,
That
yeah.
creates an extra level of suspense that, I mean, you just don't
And
find.
I'm just poking the bear, because I can. Once again, to the glass quartz queen case, starting the modern era story. Where did that take place? In a stadium? Like, you know? And it does. It makes so much suspense because you don't know. It could be any of these people. And that's a lot of people for one person to take on. And I really like the unique ways that he goes with trying to figure that out. Like, those are some of my favorite cases too. But I feel like another reason why one of the stadium cases of all time are the most boring cases to me, and it's just this one. I like the rest of them. It's just this one, and maybe that's because it's embedded with the bad memory of that first stadium case with Hybra, when when she was afraid and Conan gives her her hat and his hat and everything, and it was like that. It was like one of like the first cases that she appeared on, and I didn't like it. And I still don't. And I think it's just embedded with that. I believe you guys dubbed that episode, or it was Infinity Productions. Like someone maybe dubbed that episode.
Which episode?
I could be wrong. It was like that one. I gotta Google it. I don't even know. It takes place in a stadium, and it's like one of like it's like this. It might be that sniper case.
Oh,
like, all,
130 and 131, because we're
something like that.
we're in the process of actually doing that one right now. That's one of the ones that
And
we
maybe
want to come out with this year.
and maybe I'll like it in English, but I could not get, and I think it's because it's detrimented with that memory of not being able to get into the series when it first started, when trying to get into the Japanese. And I feel maybe that's why, but like to this day, I can't rewatch that full case. I can't.
We'll give the dub a chance, because we're
but
putting in a lot of work. I even had some lines re-recorded for the kids
yeah.
on that one. So, and Conan
But,
lines re-recorded too. So I mean,
But
give
yeah,
it a chance.
just let me know when that goes up, and I'll watch it. But like I feel like if once it gets dubbed, I'll be able to do it. Like I said, I could not watch 21. I couldn't do it. And then when the dub came out, sure, it still didn't do anything for me, but I still enjoyed myself in terms of the voices, and naturally the Conan movie climaxes are always top notch. So, and I didn't want it to end either. That was the thing. So that's like the I guess the magic behind the dubs are like, you might not be fully enjoying the case that's happening, but you still don't want it to end. Like, I can't tell you how sorrowful I felt when that movie ended, and at the same time in my head I was like, could you believe I couldn't even start this this movie, but now I don't want it to end. It's stuff like that, and that's like, just like I said, it's I swear it's just the magic behind it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, the films, I think I'm so happy that they're doing that right now, because what's going on with it is I'm in a camp that I'm okay if they don't do a dubbed version of the series. I'm more of,
Hmm.
can we at least get some sort of official release, even if that means subbed. If they go back and do
Yeah,
subbed episodes officially, like they're doing on VIU right now,
Crunchyroll.
that
Oh.
streaming service. I mean, dude, if we can get some of that over here, and they continue to do stuff like that where it's official and it comes out. I'm cool with them doing a movie every year and doing the series subbed and it airing on Crunchyroll. And now if they want to go back and do the series in English, I got some thoughts on how that needs to be done, just like you do and several people I've talked to in the community. But that's not my first option because I see so many opportunities for them to screw that up more than make it
Yeah.
work, you know?
And
Um,
the one thing I can guarantee when anybody asks, how would that process go? The first thing I say is, it's not going to be all 1,000 plus episodes. I know
I
that much.
certainly hope not,
Um,
because there's so many chances to mess that up. And I
I mean,
know,
look, I love it. I love it in the sense where I can say, hey, that means I can dump every English subbed episode I have, in a heartbeat. I'd take it. But it's also like, deep down, there's two bad things that can happen with that. So much mess up, so much waiting, and number three, uh, this was the big one. I can't even think. My brain went too much. Was what was the third one? It was really bad. Oh, cancellation. So like One Piece, like 500 episodes in, and I don't think they're dubbing it anymore. They could be, or it's like very slow or something, or like they don't do anymore. I just know like something around there with English dub of One Piece went really bad, and that's another really long going anime, and that's something that fears me. Where I'm just like, what if they did do every episode like Funimation was doing, and then, we're screwed. Like they don't finish it. What I think what they'll do is they're either gonna pick up at like the Crunchyroll numbers or the Glass Court Queen stuff, and then go forward. Or if they do go back to the beginning, they're just gonna do the like I said the manga based episodes, and they might even still try to weave some stuff that's not important out of there. I could see that, but I do know one thing: if they do restart, um, before Funimation touched it, I feel like they're still gonna do the only manga episodes. So like if you ever want to watch an episode within the first 123 episodes subbed and it's a TV original, the only way you're gonna get that is by watching Funimation stuff, which is fine. That's just a cool little bit more unique of Conan history. Like, hey, there's a few episodes that you never saw in English. You know what I mean? And you can just watch Funimation's dub for that.
yeah, I mean, and I don't think they're ever going to go back and redub those original episodes, and I am hopeful that they don't, because I think for one, it's a waste of time. I think, focus on
But
the
it's also not that. It's also not that many though. Like when you really go
yeah.
down and you look at what's TV original and what's not. Sure, it was a lot more heavier, less TV original in the beginning because the show was only supposed to be. Gosha was like one season to like two. Like it was not meant to go on for that long. That's why Rachel was just like, "I know who you are," uh, so fast. I do hope that they do, just because, well, you could say it's a waste of time, but look how fast that they're pumping out these movies. And I guarantee you, movies are done, like right now. Like, there's still more movies done, they're just not releasing them yet. Because you can't keep releasing a product on top of another product, because then people are just going to jump on the newer version of the product, and, you know what I
Well,
mean? Especially with the movies
the
being
question is what's the
standalones.
plan? Because they had said at the end of
Yeah.
2020, there's a master plan for Conan in
They
the
just
States, and
they just brought it up. They just recently brought up the plan again. I don't know if you follow TMS and Discotech on Facebook. I do. And they keep freaking saying the word master plan, and I'm like, okay, so what you're doing is not the master plan. Then what is it? And without fail, if you ever go and look at the comments whenever they post like either the opening to a movie or um or them just posting, hey, this movie's coming out or this movie is out, and they're still marketing it very poorly. The only marketing the movies have is one Twitter post. That's it. And sometimes, like using movie 23 for example, that movie was out for weeks before it got its Twitter post. Um, so, and it was only available on Amazon on the start. So it wasn't even on iTunes right away. And it's stuff like that where I'm just like, feel like you're not even marketing it correctly. And I'm like, if you're doing this well without marketing, you may as well just open up that master plan. But like every single time, like they have like these things called panels, like kind of like when you go to like an anime con, and they go over stuff. And in their bullet points, they talk case closed, master plan, but we have nothing else to speak with at that moment. And I'm like, why are you bringing it up like over and over if you're not going to tell us? And if you ever look at any of those Twitter posts, they're not saying, yay, movie 19, I'm excited to see this. Yay, movie 23, this is awesome. Every last one is, where's the series, question mark.
Right.
And when are we going to get the series, question mark. Where are the episodes? And I'm like, this is what you need to be doing. Like, I enjoy the movies, and I hope you get them all. Now, the only things I can agree with you on is it worth dubbing movie 1 through 5? Or movie 1 through 6? That I get. But in terms of Funimation episodes, hey, people are going to need to have a start, stuff like that, especially if they're trying to do it all in one continuity, and it's not all manga-based episodes. And they changed a lot, too. So that's another thing I could see, like, maybe them not doing the first few episodes, using, like, the episode 1 remake as the filler for that. Because in the anime version was different in the beginning from the manga version, if you didn't know that. Like, episode 13, I think it was, with that, was supposed to be Ikumi Miyano, and that guy in the black figure was supposed to be Jin.
Right.
But they changed that. And I could see them skipping that, too, stuff like that, because it's not... So, maybe they might not start directly at the beginning, but I do think that they will touch Funimation episodes. But so many of these episodes are skippable. They're not important to the plot. Like, as much as I love them, I love one of my favorite episodes to this day, dubbed and not dubbed, is the karaoke killing case. To this day is one of my favorite episodes of all time. And it's just like, that's not necessarily warrant of a dub, but I hope it makes it in the dub because it's one of my favorite episodes. But I could see like movie 1 through 6 being like, them not touching it. And I personally don't think they're going to go under movie 13. I personally don't see them going under that. I hope that they do because there's some really good ones in there. But what I could see, if they do decide to do all the movies, I could see it on the other side of the scale where it is justified. Like, for example, once they finish all the movies, they can only do one movie a year. And I could see them, to make revenue, what everyone has to understand, Conan is a cash cow. And you see how fast and easy it is to pump out these movies, and they have a basic script they could run off of, which is the Funimation script. I understand it's not theirs to use, but they could use it for like, hey, that's how they got it to match the mouth flap. Let's try to use a similar sentence structure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are going to be easier movies to dub, because they already have dubs, and I could feel them once again redoing those because they won't have a movie to dub once they get to movie 7. So at that point, it's just like, okay, maybe we can still do these dubs for these movies. Because Funimation and Bang Zoom put up these movies really fast when they do put them out. But I can also, like I said, I can agree with them not touching movie 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. I can see that. Like,
I don't think they will. I mean, look at the Discotheque releases, for example. They don't. If there's an original dub to it, like the Funimation dubs for these Lupin movies, they just release them and leave those original dubs in there. They don't dub over them typically. I just don't see them doing that, especially if they are going to partner for a physical release on the original work. Now, you know, the rest of the movie properties, I mean, if all the movies continue to do really, really well, I think they have no reason to stop in that regard, unless it starts to lose some traction.
Yeah. And if we don't get the series, I still fully blown believe that we are going to get every movie 1 through now. But I at least expect movie up to 13. I really do. Because that's when the movies really started to pop with their color. Like, movie 16 is my favorite movie of all time. So I could see them, like... As long as I get to 16, I'm good. I don't care what happens after that. But I do hope that we at least get up to movie 13, because a lot of people's favorites is Raven Chaser. So, and if we can have the top three Men in Black movies, like being Raven Chaser and the Silver Bullet, which I don't think the Men in Black are really in that movie, but like it's an FBI movie, which we really don't have much of, and then we have the Darkest Nightmare. I feel like that, like, you know, at least we got the good ones. It is sad to see Countdown to Heaven not be there. That's another movie I would like to see dubbed, but once again, if I ever really need that and I really want to go back to it, you still got the Funimation one.
Yeah, I think they'll do the Raven Chaser, and that, to me, that was my favorite of the Black Orb, film. Probably one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
I've probably seen that film with the translation project subs, 10 times at this point.
To me, if you don't count movie 24, because movie 24 looks beautiful, if you don't count that, in my opinion, and maybe that's just because I have the best rip of it that I could possibly find, and maybe that's what it is, I don't know, but to me, movie 13 is the best looking movie out of them all.
Yeah.
Like, graphically speaking. And I don't know if it's just due to budget, or the animation team, or what, but like, to this day, not including movie 24, it is the most beautiful looking movie in terms of just sharpness. I'm not saying it pops the most beautiful. It just looks like, if you're watching it on a 4K television, it looks stellar than anything in the Conan series has. In my opinion, I don't know how you feel about that, but I can agree with Raven Chaser being like one of the best movies. It's in my top 5 for sure.
I think that was the last one too, with the old Kogoro voice too. So. That one, yeah. I mean, that's another one, too. That one, I enjoyed Full Score of Fear before that one. I never really saw Jolly Roger. I heard really terrible things about it, like it's the worst Conan movie by a million miles. I've never really seen it.
It's in my tops. I'm not saying it's a great movie. I do like the action scene for that movie. Do you mind me talking about it, or do you think that you'll eventually watch it one day?
Jolly Roger? Go ahead and talk about it. I'll watch it regardless of whatever's spoiled or not.
Okay. It's one of my favorite Shinichi and Ran scenes, and it has one of the most coolest Conan kicks in the series, in my opinion, at least for the movies. You know, they all have that one Conan kick, and you know it's going to come, and he yells go, sure. But he kicks a chain. He's like in a cave, and they light up all with gases, and he's like, Ran, Sonico, go in the room of this boat. I'm going to, count down. We're going to kick this chain against the rock. It's going to explode. It's going to bring this boat up to the surface before we all die. And I think Agasa, I could be recalling this wrong, they have like these mouth breathers for underwater. And Sonico has one, and Conan has one, and he gives it to Ran. And he tells them to go in that room, and he says, go. They're in that room. He says, I will meet you there. Well, whatever. And she goes, yeah, but what about you? And he taps his pocket saying, I got one, don't worry. And he didn't have one. And he was drowning in the after he Ram was holding the door open, waiting to waiting for him to dive in, whatever. And when everything was submerged underwater, Conan lost his breath, and she takes hers out of her mouth and gives it to him. And when they both make it ashore or whatever, he goes, you remind me just of Shinichi. And then it showed a previous instance where Shinichi and Ran were coming home from school, and Ran was like, I'm running late. I think it was something for her dad or her mom or something, and she was running late to go see them. And she's like, but it's raining. And Shinichi says, here, take my umbrella. And she goes, thank you. She goes, what about you? And he goes, don't worry, I have one right here, and taps in his school bag. And he didn't have one. He was sick the next day. And to me, it's a beautiful thing. And maybe that's just the experience I'm drawing, because I don't remember much of the case. I remember it having one of the coolest openings that Conan ever delivers at the openings. It was a really unique one. It wasn't that recycled material. He was actually walking and talking, explaining stuff. I liked that movie for its uniqueness and for that beautiful Shinran moment. But in terms of the actual case, I really don't remember, so I really can't tell you if it was a god awful movie. But it had a good climax, and it had a good Shinran moment not to see.
Yeah,
That's my opinion on Jolly Roger.
Yeah, I haven't really
Like
seen it. I mean, but I do. I enjoy the films. I think for what they are. I
yeah,
think lately the quality's been a little lacking, so to speak. But I will say
I
I'm
would
excited for
yeah.
I'm excited for
Uh,
24 because
but what we gotta understand is 24 is the first movie done with this guy, and in my opinion, if this is what he's got in store, I'm okay with the change.
right,
Like I enjoyed the movies, but I can agree some of them are like eh. But like don't get me wrong, I loved Quarter to Silence, The 11th Striker. Uh, I liked Private Eye of the Distant Sea. Um, I like The Darkest Nightmare. So I mean, like it's like I like these movies, but there are a few of them like in between where they don't hit as hard. Like I can agree with The Crimson Love Letter to me was not it. The original Zero the Enforcer before it was dubbed never really struck with me. They become more streamlined, back to like what you compared the past ones to be. Like if you count like the Funimation movies, even if you watch them in Japanese, they're so more unique in the sense of like the way I describe like the earlier movies of they're like what if the Conan series got a movie. That's what those are like. The movies now to me are excluding movie 24, which if you just told me movie 24 was like a Scarlet Arc, then I'd just believe it and write it off and it's whatever. But like all the modern movies to this day are just like, what if we just made Conan 3-parter, more action, more budget, and then just strung them together as an hour and a half episode? That's what they feel like now. They're really streamlined, basic episodes with more action, more budget. In my opinion, that's how I see the new movies. But like the classic movies, I'd say maybe up to like episode 12, maybe 13. I could throw 13 in there just because 13 is such a good movie. Were in that sense of like, what if Conan, the series, had a movie but didn't have one before? Each movie had that instance where it was just like, each time it felt like the first Conan movie to ever exist. Like they could all stand that way. I don't know if you could feel that way about them, but that's how I feel.
yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, kind of brought it up earlier, they're kind of all their own thing, and I do feel that some of them now are a little, kind of like you said, streamlined, but and they're, they've had some good ones too. It's just I feel that they hit on that a little bit few and far between a little bit now, and that's okay. I mean, that's just people working on it and everything like that. It'll never
Yeah,
stop me from watching them, being
exactly.
a fan.
Because they're still good at, and you're still excited. You're still like, I can't wait till that October or September when we get to see it
Right,
after everyone saw it in April.
right.
I'm still that way. I'm still giddy for each one, even after, if you had a burn like, to me, Crimson Love Letter or like you, Zero the Enforcer, you still reset yourself for that cycle where you're just like, I'm still excited for them. They're not bad. They're just like not what I expect from a Conan movie. And I get that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's always opportunities for them to improve, and I think 24 is going to be an excellent
Yeah.
film. I'm very excited for it. I think that there's a lot, like I say, for people to be excited about, with all the
Mm-hmm.
different dubs for the film, being announced before the release, people kind of understand what they're
Mm-hmm.
getting
Yeah.
with it a little bit more. And the
Like,
fact that we know there's an English dub of it for sure, there's not a question of
mm-hmm.
it at this point that, and eventually it will come out and we will see it.
like, what was I gonna say? Like the one thing about these movies though that I do like that connects them with the more fully standalone movies where I feel like you could say that they're the first ones and you'd believe me, because they feel like that max quality first attempt at being a movie in those first 13 movies or so. But the one consistent thing that the modern movies can still do to me to this day is still get like your eyes to water, like in like those like sad like scenes, like whether if it's Conan and Rachel or whatever, like they still had that big impact that could still get you right in the feels. Like one thing like I always had like growing up, like using Pokemon movies as an example, they could always get you at the end. And like if you think of Pokemon the first movie, if you've ever seen that back in the day, stuff like that, like they could still get you But like, that's the one main thing I get out of those movies now is like when I walk out of it after seeing it, that's the first thing I come to because it's the last thing that I felt during it because those scenes are usually at the end, and they can at least get you a teary-eyed or emotional feeling, and that's the one thing I still like about the modern movies. And I like any movie that can do that to me. If you can make me feel that way, I feel like then the movie was decent enough, in my opinion. And to me, I feel like every movie has done it without fail, except for movie 17, not movie 17, movie 21 and movie 7. And I actually like movie 7. So, but those two did not do anything for me in that factor. Like, I didn't feel anything emotional in those cases. And maybe that's just because I'm so used to, like, Heiji and Kazuya just, like, not being able to admit their love. And now they just make such heavy jokes with it now. Like, Shinichi just steals every last place possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I've made good connections with it. I thought Darkest Nightmare was solid. I mean, I made a lot of connections with that, but that was on the dub side too, and getting to hear a lot more of Jin and the Black Organization characters.
I felt that way with both, and maybe that's because that, if you don't count movie 24, that was my most hypest cycle for a movie. Because now, mind you, like I said, when I jumped in, there was about 700 and something odd movies, okay? And I didn't watch the movies when you were supposed to. You know, there is a place to watch every single movie, if you don't know that. Like, within the episode timeline, there is a place to watch every single movie. And usually they have a precursor episode that leads into it. Like, I don't remember what episode it was, but just recently there was an episode with Sierra and stuff at, like, a school or whatever with trash cans. That was a precursor to movie 24. So there is like a precursor episode. But now, mind you, when I watched these episodes, as soon as Hyber was announced, I watched the movies up until there were no more movies left to watch. So I know I waited for movie 18. I don't remember waiting for any movie prior to that. I just don't remember. But I remember waiting for 18, and I watched movie 18. And then ever since then, the only movie I've been hyped for, I'm like, this is the hypest cycle, I can't wait to get my hands on this movie, not including movie 24, was The Darkest Nightmare. So I enjoyed it both ways because I was too hyped. The bringing the Black Organization, it had that final showdown thing. They were talking about rum in a big capacity, saying rum revealed, and thanks for lying to me. But, you know, and that's the one thing that I noticed, that they lie to us in these Conan trailers a lot. Like, in movie 18, for example, in the trailers, the guy in the van who shot Murphy, when he was aiming at the back of Conan's head, in the trailer, he goes, "This is the end, Kudo Shinichi." He never knew who the hell Shinichi was in the entirety of the film. Or never said the word once, Shinichi Kudo. So it's just like, thanks for lying to me, you know? Like, and that's the one thing I notice about these, and that's the one fear I have with these movies, like, where I feel like you see something cool, like, for example, movie 24, and then watch it just never materialize in the actual film. I have more hopes for this one because they had more time to polish it. This movie was done, like 100% completed before it got delayed by a year. Because they showed out the final launch trailer saying this movie comes in theater next, week. Get excited, and then the whole film got delayed. And there's no way that you could tell me like, oh well, there's no way a week before that you're just like, we can't get this still out in April or whatever. It was, and I know the exact reason why it was delayed. Because they could have done what the Sonic movie did, release it straight to digital, still make the money. But Conan, once again, is a cash cow, and I don't know if you know how they operate with this, with every Conan film, is they have a festival where they air the movie, and it makes a lot of money. And that's the only reason why they're keeping it, because they want to do a festival. And they did the festival with this movie, and it got closed down multiple times because of the COVID still being a thing. And I'm just like, you should just release a digital. But they gained a whole nother year to work on movie 25 and polish up this movie and have an English dub ready to go. Now, what I'm wondering is, are we going to, you need to talk about this stuff, about other stuff, so I'm not gonna go too deep with it. But I wonder if we're truly gonna get movie 24 like as soon as it becomes digitally for the Japanese audience. I feel like it'd be stupid if we didn't. Then what was the point of rushing the English dub or telling us that we were getting one for this movie if we're not going to get it at the same time as everybody else? Like, I just feel like once that movie goes digital, especially on Amazon, like when the movies went up in the dub, they added the Japanese versions of the movies on Amazon. So now I feel like movie 24, when it's going to come out, you're going to put that on Amazon, subbed, and then you might as well drop it dubbed immediately. I mean, you have it. Just use it.
Yeah, I sense that we will. I mean, I would be shocked if we didn't, to be honest with you, at this point.
And like I was telling Joby the other day, was I've enjoyed all these movies so much more with the new dub versus when I watched them originally. And I told him, and he agreed with me. I wonder how you feel about this. For the first time since Funimation, I would like to, if I have the opportunity to watch this movie dubbed first, I'm going to do it.
Oh yeah.
Like instead of watching it subbed, then be like, okay, I'm going to go watch it dubbed now, because that's the routine. It's watch it subbed, watch it dubbed. And I feel like for this time, and especially knowing Akai and Jody have stellar voices, and they're a huge focus of the film, and I'm dying to see what Okiya Subaru sounds like. Stuff like that, and I wonder how it's gonna feel to watch this movie dubbed for the first time, because like when you watch it dubbed for the second time, you roughly know what's gonna happen. Sure, you'll catch stuff that you didn't catch before or enjoy it more, but you roughly know, okay, at this point this guy's gonna get tackled. Like you know what's coming. This would be the first time since Funimation's dub, or what you can count as them doing the series, would be like, this is the first time watching something fully brand new dubbed for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it interesting, because it's now we see the films actually coming out, and we see a lot more than we did before, because I mean those films had been out in Japan for years and years and years, and I mean, but we didn't really, and the internet was a lot different, I think, back then too, as far as information on the series, and now everything is so tied together. If an announcement on the movie breaks, I mean, everybody's talking about it, and then dubs and all that are kind of of what language and all that's kind of secondary. It's okay, the plot is this. Yeah.
And the one thing that movie 24 is going to do good for the series, in the sense, in my opinion, to finally unveil that master plan, is one, I'm sure the sales for it are going to be nuts. Number one. Number two, I feel like another thing's going to make TMS Entertainment make this jump is, or Bang Zoom, or whoever makes that final decision of what we're doing right now, is once they do movie 24, they got nothing new to do. They caught up. They started with their most recent thing, and now we're at movie 24. They're caught up with movie 24. The only thing they could do is go back and dub previous movies, and I guarantee you, like I said, once you get to a certain number, let's say like 13, you can't just keep doing this without doing anything else. Especially because everything, once you get down to that point, you're just redoing everything that we've already had, or you're getting too old. You're not in the modern series anymore. And I feel like movie 24 is that final step for them to be like, okay, we don't have anything brand new to do anymore. And that might be like the final shove for them to announce at least what the master plan is. I'm not saying they got to do it or show it off, but at least tell us what it is. Because a big thing with, I've been in marketing, and I've done marketing down to the point where, they link up stock markets with the real numbers that are going in real time, and they give you a fake amount of money to invest. And I did this in school, and then you invest, and then you see what your final outcomes are going, and it's like playing the real stock market. It uses the real numbers and real time everything. I was number one in the class for it, with a high amount of money, and I'm like, I wish I did this in real life. I'd be rich right now. And then I also did sports marketing in the sense of calling and getting sponsorships and stuff like that. And I understand how this stuff works in a sense to a degree, and I I just can't see them just not going any further with this, and then just constantly doing the movies in silence. You got nothing new to show off. You keep telling us that there's a master plan. In my opinion, it can't be anything else besides the series. Now, I'm not saying in what degree, but you're doing the movies and you're telling me that the movies aren't the master plan. What else is there besides Conan? You can't tell me the master plan is doing 12 OVAs. That doesn't make no sense to me. So, I mean, like, I do think, like, they're planning on doing something with the series. I just don't know to what degree. But, like, it's time. And they should have done it by now. I really don't know why they haven't done it. You've done the trial. You know what those numbers are. You're bringing The Darkest Nightmare back to the Blu-ray. You got movie 18 and movie 24 in development. Really, after that, they're good movies, okay? But they don't have any of the modern high stakes that they're going with, like the Black Organization or the FBI or stuff like that. They're more classical in a sense. They're not in the modern era. So, like, I personally don't see them keeping this master plan quiet anymore, especially with everything that they market very poorly on Twitter, like I said. It's them asking them, what's this master plan, or when are the episodes coming? I don't know how long they can stay silent on it, because once we get movie 24 and 18, what is there, in my opinion? We know nothing else that's in development. We know nothing else more of the series. This is actually the perfect time to answer our question, because we always knew movie 24 was going to come someday. We knew it was going to happen at one point, whether it was as soon as the Japanese got it, during that same year or the beginning of the following year. We knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know when. And now that we know that it's coming, and it's the last thing that we know to exist, it is actually the perfect time to answer our question.
There's probably an intention behind that. I think at this point
sure.
there probably is that, hey, we'll go ahead and put this film out and then we'll reveal what we're going to do. And I think it'll be very structured and laid out. I think for them the time really isn't now. And maybe we're pushing for the answers too soon because, the dub has, the new films really, they've been out not very long.
And you want to know what? Now that you say it that way, it really sparked something in me. I'm thinking that you could be onto something in the sense of movie 24 is going to be big. Okay, it's going to do well, but not only is it going to do well, it's going to be the most action-packed Conan movie ever. And I feel what they could do for the master plan is after this movie goes out, makes its numbers, they're going to announce, like, did you all enjoy movie 24? Well, guess what? We have the and that could be a good push, because everyone's going to go to the most recent thing before trying out the series. It's going to be movie 24. Because, look, you got to be real. All these movies before, they're just tests. That's all they are. And you could tell, because each one they're getting better and better. It's not like, we practiced and here we go. And I feel like movie 24 being the cream of the crop, it's going to be the most action-packed movie we've ever had. And they're going to be like, hey, did you all like this? Or someone trying something for the first time. Be like, hey, but guess what? We have a whole series of this. And I could see that actually. I didn't think about that till just now. I think that could be another reason why they haven't said anything. Because movie 24 could be a huge pushing tool. The one thing I just don't like about it being a pushing tool, and the same thing with Zero the Enforcer, is it's spoilers. Sure, you can, someone could be watching the series of the 400s, but once they get to the Clash of Red and Black or the Scarlet arc, they're going to be like, or the Who Burden arc is, they're going to be like, oh, I already know this answer. And that's the one thing I don't like about them doing these movies the ways that they're doing them. Sure, they're more action movies than what Conan used to be, but it's also, they're covered in spoilers. I get it. These are also probably the movies, are, like you said, more pertaining to the manga fans, which already know this information. So it's not that big of a deal. But for newcomers, which they don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I guess it's because they don't know the original origin, because everyone's enjoying these movies, whether they're new or not. Or returning fans, because I've read some people saying, I stopped watching Case Closed after season 5 and after movie 6. and I jumped back in with this and I thoroughly enjoyed it, or vice versa, I hated it. But I don't know. I feel like, but I could see them using movie 24 as a huge push because Japan, and you gotta understand that's who's running this new dub. The infrastructure. They're using movie 24 as a big push right now for marketing. Um, this is probably the biggest push for Conan marketing I've seen besides The Darkest Nightmare. The Darkest Nightmare had a very heavy push. They had the most commercials I've ever seen for a Conan movie, and unique commercials. Like where they used just like stand-in characters, like just standstill frames of them saying voice dialogue, and then Jin saying "the end" at the end of it. But besides that, movie 24 is the only other movie that I've seen markedly have a push. So I don't know. I feel like this is TMS Entertainment's time to push out what they want for the English side of this and going forward. I feel like movie 24 is a huge step. And I feel like this is Conan going into a very unique new era that you can segregate off into again, because I don't know if you saw the trailer, like the teaser trailer for movie 25. It looks like I don't even know if Conan's going to be in the movie. That's how over of a stretch it's going to be. It looks like they're taking the spin-off series of Detective Conan into a movie form. Not saying Conan won't be in the movie, because he probably will, because then why are you calling it Detective Conan? But it looks like they're taking the Metropolitan Police love story and the spin-off of the Conan series, the Wild Police stories that feature Amuro and Scotch and everything. And you could hear Matsuda's voice in the trailer saying something as cherry blossoms fall. And I feel like they're trying something very new. I don't know if it's just going to be like, oh, that's just the backstory to this movie, and then, they don't actually appear in the movie's actual characters. But I feel like this is the first time where this movie takes place, like, in the past.
Well, and it
but it's also not the first... Yeah, but it's also not the first time that they used, for example, when Conan and Takaji were locked up in an elevator, and Takaji's like, okay, really, who are you? You're not a kid. And he goes, I'll tell you in the afterlife, type thing. And they brought up Matsuda with the Ferris wheel and everything else. And they recently brought that up again with the phone case, with the phone having the bullet through for Scotch. So I feel like that's also, they're just trying to tie it into that modern arc that we're in right now, because we are at that point. But I do wonder if this movie is going to take place in the past, because that whole event took place in the past, and you're not going to touch about that case in the present, because that's what the series is doing. So it's like, why would you talk about it in the present and then also show it off in the present in the series? You can, but it just sounds like overdoing it. At that point, just make movie 25 about something else. Why touch upon it twice? It just doesn't make sense to me. That sounds like, if you're going to bring it up twice, have that be like the precursor TV original before movie 25 takes place, if you're going to do that, like in that aspect. So I feel like there's a reason for it, and I feel like we said, this is a new era director, and you saw how unique turn he took with movie 24. We've never seen anything like that in the movies or in the series as a whole, and I think this is just his way of being unique. Not saying that's what we're going to get, but that's just what it looks like. It looks like if that manga spinoff had a voice, that's what it sounded like. Just through like the illustration and everything that he had just on that teaser screen, it screamed that manga. It didn't scream, oh, this is Conan, but with these characters. I didn't even think of Conan when I saw it originally.
Yeah, and I think they're going to continue to push the envelope and try new things. I think just to broaden the series and to kind of push it further. I think each film, they strive to do that. I think in this one they're going to do really well. I think the next one I think is, it'll be different if it involves the Metro PD a little bit, but and who knows if it'll take place in the past. But I think that I do look forward to see them continue to push the envelope. Hopefully, the box office revenue for 25 kind of comes back up. I think with the whole Japan theaters having to close down for like a week or two, it kind of derailed 24 just a little bit. But it's still going to do very well, globally, and then the releases through digital after theater, and who knows, it might get a U.S. release at some point later on. Discotheque has said they wanted to put a Conan film in theaters. So you never know what kind of limited run it could get even here, and how it would do. I think would be, equally as interesting, really. I mean, there's people that are hungry for it,
Yeah. And I could see if Case Closed does come to the West in terms of theater, it's going to be that 2 or 3 day release.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, hey, it's in theater for the whole week. It's not going to happen as much as we want it to happen. It's not going to happen. Like Japan, they do this with all their Japan films. It's always like 2 or 3 days. It's never the full week. And usually it books up really fast in the theaters. That's just how it works. It's a sad, world that we live in for that. But I do hope that Conan, at least before his way out, at least gets one movie in the theaters. But I do, one thing I do like about the series' longevity is, especially with this new person writing for the movies and stuff and doing the movies. I'm not necessarily saying he's writing it. I don't exactly know what his job is. It's just his new era film, and each person in this spot has the full say-so, of how the movie turns out. And just looking at the way he's pushing the envelope and trying to be unique, even though this movie takes place in the present, it's still a very unique concept to take something from the series that's happening right now specifically, and turn that into a movie is unique. We don't do that for the movies. The closest we get to the series and the movies is the TV original that ties into the movie. That's the closest we ever get. He's taking an actual canonical arc and using it for at least some part of the premise in the movie, not saying it's going to be tied to it in any way, shape, or form, but you're still using those characters that, so, I don't know. And that's the one thing I like about the longevity of the series is, if you can keep it unique and push the envelope like you say, I'm fine with this series going on another 5 to, I can't say 10 years, I'm sorry, like 5 to 6 more years I could do. I'll take 20 if I have to, but I want to ideally see the show before I die. The fact that Gosho is so afraid that he's going to die, that he has the ending written in a safe that 2 people know, okay? The fact that he has to do that scares me, so I feel like if we do get the ending to the show, and it's like, we're still going to get the ending he intended, whether he dies or not, but I feel like there will be holes left if he dies. Like, I feel like things will be left out, things will be sped along, stuff like that, and I kind of hope Gosha makes it to the end of this, and I also hope he has a wonderful retirement. But as much as Conan is a cash cow, and it's also like he has his own town, there's no way Conan's dying when the series ends. I wonder if the show is going to enter like a movie every year. Like, he'll be in his adult body maybe, or maybe this will be like past untold stories or something, so when he still is a kid or something. But I do feel like we're gonna get like either movies like as Shinichi going forward, or like a spin-off series that Gosho might be like, he's not going to be like necessarily full on hands on like he is now, because I think he's ready for a break. Once the show goes, I don't think he's going to try to start something new. But like, I can't see the show completely ending, and I do have like a theory, like a few theories about the show's end. Like, I do think by the end, Shinichi and Ran will have a kid, and they will name him Conan. And I feel like a reboot, kind of like, I don't watch Naruto or anything, but I would use this as an example, where like it would reboot in the sense of it's his son trying to solve these cases, and then like Shinichi's like sort of taking his dad's like spot in the series, where he's like, oh, I know, you have to hone your skills a little bit better type thing. Because I can't see the show fully ending. I feel like it's gonna reboot in some sense, whether it's just movies or an actual reboot to the series, like a more like regrown up, refresh, retake with it, like Shinichi being an adult and then him having a kid, and then that way the DC Misfits can still stay around, because the new Conan would still be young. These kids, yes, would be a little bit older, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't hang out and not have a space in the series. That's my thought with like when the show comes to an end, I don't think that means it's over. I just think it means we close this chapter. Because Gosha already spoiled us. He already said that there is a happy ending. Doesn't mean there can't be sad tear jerks of tears, but there will be, like, overall, things should be relatively tied off in a good knot. People shouldn't be complaining. I do think, like, Vermouth's going to die. I have a full, like, if you heard my last podcast, I feel like the most beautiful way to end Vermouth in this series is her taking a bullet for Conan, through whether if it was Rum or Jin who shot him, or the boss who shot them, and she took the bullet, and her final words will be, a logical mind isn't needed to save someone, right? Like, I hate Vermouth, burning passion, and that's only because she tries to kill Sherry, but, I do think that's, like, a beautiful way, for a split moment, for someone who hates the character more than any other character in the series, actually for a moment feel like I feel bad for her, and this actually made me feel bad, is saying something, because, like, a lot of people love Vermouth, so when they see that happen, that's going to be more impactful to them because they actually like her. I can't stand her. I like Sharon, but also half of Sharon's life is Vermouth, so but
yeah, I mean, and that's, everybody has their story. I think I'm very interested to see how they, tie the Akai story and what they do with Jin and Vodka and everybody. It's just,
I just can't wait for them, because I know this isn't in the manga yet, so this is open territory for everybody. I can't wait to see, speaking of Jin, because we're having, like, it's not going to be as long as the Clash of Red and Black, but I know this. We're getting something that's similar to the Clash of Red and Black again. But it's not going to be, like, a big parter. It's going to revolve around the same thing as, like, I'm not going to say spoilers for people who aren't watching the show yet or haven't even got to the Clash of Red and Black or anything. But, like, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this. Like, the whole Kira Nakai thing, right? In the Clash of Red and Black. They're doing something like that again. But it's not going to be, like, hospitalized and stuff like that. But, like, they're doing, like, a repeat of that exact thing, and another Okiya Subaru like character will be joining the fray, stuff like that, and that's currently happening now, and I'm excited for that because we haven't got anything like the Clash of Red and Black for a very long time, and so I'm excited for that. I know that's coming, but something that was never seen before in the series, I don't know what that was, but that was part of it. That's going to bother me because that was leading into it, but, like, I knew that we were about to get something that hasn't been announced, like, for the manga yet, even. Like, it's brand new and I can't think of what it was. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and that's really that's a big reason why we're doing a fandom version of that, so people that have never seen it get a chance to see it, because it's one of the most important arcs in the entire series. For people that haven't seen it, hopefully it gives them an opportunity to view it, in a way that is comfortable for them. I had somebody message me the other day looking for downloads of it because they want to watch it with their family on a big screen. So I was like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, right, here you go. But yeah, I don't know. Conan has been, for me, besides the retrying to get into the sub, it's been a beautiful ride, and anybody, like I said, that I've shown to it has stuck to it and watched it and has enjoyed it, and it's something that's very unique in the sense, and it's gonna be sad the day that it goes. Excuse me, the day that it goes, but I don't think it's when it's gone kind of thing. There definitely will be a resurgence to it. And on that note, I think that's why I'm okay with the ending, like, because, like, I live on the aspect of, like, I want it to end because I want closure, and I don't want it to end because I enjoy all the characters in the show. But, like, I could live with the fact if you told me I get closure and I still get to enjoy the show technically in a rebooted format. I could live with that for another 10 years or so, like, because I got the ending. I got the ending that I care about, because this like the reboot ain't gonna go for another 1,000 episodes, okay? We know that, and at that point, everything could be filler at that point, and it wouldn't matter. because the main story is over. There's no black organization. And this time it's just, what if this show existed, but there was no Men in Black? Because there's not going to be no Men in Black. Men in Black are going to be arrested or whatever becomes of them. And this would just literally be what we've been experiencing up till now, but with the new face being Conan. But, he's probably going to act and think just like Shinichi because it's his kid, and he thinks just like Booker. So it's like, it's no big deal. And we still get to see the cast that we love still be a thing. So I could see like a reboot being a more logical thing. And then we could still get movies on top of that. Just because we get a reboot series doesn't mean we can't get rebooted movies. And it would be very interesting to me if they, I don't think that they'll do this. I think it'll still be called Detective Conan of some sort because the kid's name will be Conan. But I feel like it would be very interesting if they took the turn and then just called the new reboot series Case Closed. I don't think that will happen. That's a pipe dream. And I think it also add to confusion. I think it'll still be called Detective Conan. And I think we'll still call the new reboot series something Case Closed with like a subtitle, I'm sure. But I do think like we will get something after this. Like, what do you think will happen? Like, once like we get the final ending and the series as a whole takes its final leave, like, do you think like they'll reboot, or do you think they're just gonna let it like die out?
I think they'll let it lie. I think if anything, they'll do something more with Kaito more than anything. As my opinion,
Okay.
they'll do more with that. But I think Gosho, I think you're right, will not be a part of it. I think Gosho's gonna take a step back.
He'll oversee it for sure. That's his baby. But like I don't think he'll be like, you can't do this with that character.
I think he'll
like,
take a step back. For sure.
Yeah. I think he's just like, because what you got to understand is anything after the story is closed with the Men in Black, anything after that doesn't really matter. It's just, hey, we're letting these characters still live. We're not killing them. It's not over. And I feel like that's why it's easier to take a step back. It's just like anything you change doesn't change the ending because it has something like unique. Like I can use Friends because I know that, what's his name? Gosho loves American sitcoms. Everyone in Friends, including the directors, are just like, yeah, we could bring Friends back, but the way it ended so beautifully, the show was the time when you needed your friends, when they were your family, and then they all had their own family by the end where you didn't need that anymore. And they're like, yeah, we could come back and make a movie or something, but to do that, we have to unearth unravel everything that those characters ended with just to bring it back sounds stupid. And when it ended so beautiful, you could leave it that way. But Conan, on the other hand, while it can't fit in that description, it's just like once the Men in Black are gone, that was the resolution. Shinichi and Rand get married. Okay, sure, let's say that's like the ending of the series. Okay, they get married, then what? It's not like they get married and if you have to unravel anything. There's nothing to unravel. You can just keep going forward. Your final case was solved. Now it's time to see what your life really entails now that you got your body back. Instead of questioning forever. If anything, not rebooting the series leaves us with more questions. Then it would cause more questions if you brought something like Friends to redo it. It'd bring more questions. Why would this change? Why would this, with Conan, it's, okay, the Men in Black are caught. Now what? Like, well, what happens next in your life? So that's another reason why I could see it. And for long-running animes, if they're successful, which Conan is successful, especially if they keep the dub alive for this, is if they're successful and they can hold a dub and a sub and be a longevity, they get reboots. That's just simple. Fruit Baskets just got one, and I never really got into Fruit Baskets. I tried because Jerry was in it. What was the other one I was just thinking of? Naruto. I don't watch Naruto, but I know that one got it. Like, a lot of them are getting them if their longevity and their main arcs are over. So I don't know. Conan, I feel like, is a very smart way of what they're doing now, because what they can do is have the show end, right? Have that serenade for a while. We are getting the English version of the episodes that are still coming out. And then once that comes down and both sides are done, we're all caught up, because these episodes are going to come out fast. You see how fast these movies are coming out. And it's very easy to do a season at a time. And especially if they're only doing half the series. And I'm sure they'll do more weeding and picking from there. And I feel like from that, they can just be like, once we both have an ending or we're close to an ending, they could start doing a reboot series, Japan only, have that go out for a while, and then once we're done, start dubbing that for us. Is what I feel will happen, because I feel like they're going to try to let this go as long as they can. And with reboots, there's one rule about reboots which is nice, is they aren't necessarily canonical or connected to their original debuts. So technically, they could change whatever they want, and it wouldn't affect the original story. You can still stitch it together as one universe if that's on you, or that's how you like to view the series, like how I do with Funimation and what we have now. But like that's like the number one rule in reboots when it comes to viewing them is technically, sure, we're continuing where we left off, but it's not technically tied to the original series. So that's why I feel like it's another reason why they could do it. Like, it's not hurting anyone, and they're making money. And I can tell you right now, they're going to make every last dime they can make off Conan until the end of time. Because if that wasn't the case, they would have lowered the premium rate for Funimation. Because Funimation said that they would have kept going if it wasn't a premium IP. And if TMS Entertainment knew they could make more money just by giving it to them cheaper, and that they would still buy it, they could have done that. But it's the fact that they want every dime Conan can make. And if that means shutting up and waiting a decade to get the license back, to actually do something with it and make more profit on it, then that's what it is. There's no way the show is just going to, like, serenade and then be it.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, I would hope not. I mean, and that's, maybe they could do like a version of, like they did for Dragon Ball, do a Kai version of Conan. I think that would be something. But I don't know. I think the future, it holds a lot of interesting things. But we'll see.
Like I feel like I don't know much about Dragon Ball. Like, I played a few of the games, but I haven't actually like gotten into it. And I'm gonna show you how lowly I've gotten into Dragon Ball is, and maybe you might know the answer to this, because I eventually gave up. I was on Facebook one day, and it was late. I had nothing else to do. I was waiting for dinner to finish cooking in the oven, and I was watching. Someone was streaming Dragon Ball Z. I'm not even sure which iteration it was. I know that there's like Budokai Kai, everything. I don't, too much for me because I don't know much about it. And Android 18 lent money for someone to enter like a tournament or whatever, and it spanned across 3 episodes of her trying to get her money back, and I only watched it like haphazardly the entire time while doing something else just to see if she got her money back. And then after like the 4th episode came out, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just did it like for giggles, like just to see like, did she get her money back, like just out of mental curiosity. And then I was just like, nope, I can't. And then I stopped because dinner was done. I was like, I give up. But that's my connection with the actual series. This is like, I literally watched it out of spite to see if Android 18 got her money back. Like, that's where I was at with the series.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up with it.
You would have to.
I grew up.
Yeah.
With it.
So you'll have to explain like what Kai would be for me to understand. Like what you would mean for that, for being like if Conan took that route.
Basically taking all the filler out, like, and highlighting like the important like action parts of the series, more of the actual cut and dry story.
Okay, so you haven't seen the Scarlet Alibi yet,
yeah.
Right?
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay. So the Scarlet Alibi, so like kind of like that, how it's just like it's pieced together. I mean, I get it. They're talking about one character, so it's different than a whole series. But like they're piecing it together like that.
Yeah,
okay. I could see them doing that, but also with the dub. So maybe they would only do this exclusively for Japanese, because I feel like if we get the dub, they're gonna do that anyway. They're gonna cut all the filler. So it would be like a Japanese re-release in my sense for that, to do it that way. And maybe that's what they do, because that's their main market. We're like a secondary market to them. Doesn't mean secondary market's not good. Sega just learned that. They released a Atlas game on Steam for the first time. Like, oh my god, that made a whole lot of money. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when you sell multi-platform. You should know that you're a multi-platform company.
Yeah.
But to me, Conan's gonna live, and I'm not saying it's gonna last much longer than that. Like, I don't know how long Boruto's been going on for. I don't watch Naruto, so I wouldn't know. But like, I feel like that's been going on since like 2017. I could be wrong. It could have just started 2 years ago. I don't even know. But I feel like Conan will at least encounter that one time before he goes out the door. Even if they just do it in a movie format. They can 100% do like a reboot like in a movie format where like once a year for like 5 years we get a movie. Like, I don't know. But the only part that I have against with that happening is I feel like, and maybe it's just because I want a Big Bang finish for the series, and maybe that's why I feel like this will happen, and then that kind of hurts a reboot, because how do you have a reboot without this character? Is Dr. Agasa dying? Like, a lot of people, and I tell every person I talk to this because I want to hear their opinion, and 9 out of 10 people say I'm twisted and messed up for thinking or wanting this to happen, is I feel like Dr. Agasa is going to die in the sense of the Black Organization is going to figure out, and they're going to bomb the place, and Hybera and Shinichi just aren't there. And that gives Shinichi that driving force to be like, this is personal. That was my best friend type thing. But also on the other hand, could you really kill off Dr. Agasa? But I mean, he has nothing else to live for. I mean, poor man. I mean, all he has is the grandkids that aren't even really his grandkids. And that's it. He has nothing else going on in his life. He has this one love interest that he never sees, and maybe he gets her. I could see the end ending with her and then re-raising Hybera, because I feel like Hybera deserves a clean slate at life. I fully do. But I also feel like that would drive that final impact, because it's not the first time they teased us with Agasa's death. They did it to us in the head-to-head showdown with the Black Organization with the tomato juice. They showed us him when he first encountered Hybera, and those were really suspenseful moments, like, where you felt like, oh my god, is this the end? Because you could only imagine that happening near the end. And I feel like if at least at most it'll be a jump scare, like he was kidnapped by the Black Organization and now it's personal for him to get to the top. Like they haven't killed him yet, they're still trying to get answers out of him type thing. Like, I do think something with Agasa is going to happen in terms of this is personal, my best friend. Maybe not necessarily saying he's going to die, but I just feel like the bomb way is the way to go, because this is him just like, okay, enough with the games. I'm done. And if that means him walking up to Jin as Conan, that means him walking up to Jin as Conan, or Bourbon, like, hey, Bourbon, take me in, something. Because I just can't see a reboot happening without Agasa too. Like, that's like another thing. But I also can't see the series ending without something happening to Agasa.
Yeah.
Not saying he has to die.
Something.
But like, what is your thoughts on that? Like, a lot of people think I'm sick and twisted for wanting anything to happen to Agasa, and I don't, because I love Agasa. But it's just like, I feel like you need that personal final moment. Like, Hybera had the same thing happen to her, and Shinichi, oddly enough, not even knowing Hybera at the time, saying, this is personal, I'm going to take you down with my own hands. To him, that was just a bank teller. Like, you know what I mean? How is that personal to you?
Yeah.
I mean, but I feel like, hey, you want personal, that's the way to get it. Or maybe his parents get kidnapped. Like, his parents aren't going to die. I feel like there's no way that's going to happen. I do think it's interesting, the current part of the series where we're in now is the Kudos are staying home. They're no longer overseas, which I think, your son's been in this for so long. What the hell are you doing? Why are you overseas? Like, come home to your child. But now they're staying over here to plot out the final attack. Mary is just like tracking down Sherry, being like, hey, we're going to get this poison. And when we get this poison, we're going out for our attack. We know who the boss is. We know who Rum is. I don't know how long they could play this game for without raising the stakes and then ending.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point it's kind of interesting. And we have to also remember not a whole lot of time has passed. So I mean, his parents haven't been gone that long.
Yeah, it's
That part's good. But I think
yeah,
the fact that they're involved in the
but
story now is a lot more. Is
yeah,
I'm happy to see that. It's a good direction for the show because I've
yeah,
always wanted them to be more involved.
like yeah, like what I didn't like about it was like I guess like it's like the Conan is kidnapped episode that we were talking about. Okay, you find out your kid is shrunk. Okay, and then what do you do that exact day later that night? You get on an
Yeah.
airplane. I mean, if that was your kid, it's still a minor, mind you. Would you have I get it. Him living with Richard technically is better for him because he gets more leads that way. But it's just like, and they did offer to take him back home with him. But the one quote to this day that still makes me suspect uh, Booker, and you could say how smart Booker is. I'm not saying Booker's the boss of the Black organization. I fully believe it is who I thought it was, and then who they alluded it to being, and then who Yusaka Kudo just straight out said it was. Um, the one thing that he said to me that did not make sense to me, and still to this day doesn't sit with me, when at the end of that episode he says, Shinichi, and you're gonna say this to your son. Same thing. Like I'm gonna use Death Note for example. When when like it was like the live action remake of Death Note, instead of what's his name, his father knowing that he was using the Death Note to kill, at the end, still knowing that when his son was shot, he still grabbed him in his arms and was just like, I still love you, but like I can't believe that you did this, like you're almost not my child, but I still love you, and I felt that exact thing with Booker because like it was too shady to say this. Like, who are you? You're a mystery novelist, and you sometimes work with the police. That has nothing to do with the government. And he says, Shinichi, I want you to come home with me. The people you're dealing with are dangerous. One, you don't even know these people, but they're dangerous. And then you say, I have people very high up in the government.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have people high up in the government. Uh, you're a mystery book novelist. That sometimes stuck his head in a case and got credited for it. Um, that's just one thing that's oddly been weird to me. And then he's constantly overseas. I'm not saying that like he's part of the Black organization in any way, shape, or form, but then he also tells Shinichi is just like, and then in the most recent appearance, he tells him, he says, Rum and Asuka, those aren't meant to be two separate words. Like, what if they were supposed to be one word? And then before Shinichi even got a second to think, he says, oh, it's, the word. And I'm like, I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me, in my opinion. I mean, you can also say maybe that's just the trope of Booker always having to be one step ahead of Shinichi. That's been the thing from the very beginning. He's always one step ahead of him. But it's just oddly suspicious to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's taken so many twists and turns. It's hard to, it's
Like, could you imagine getting to like the top of that chair, and then it's just like he just like swivels in the chair, like it's like, oh
yeah.
my god, like I don't think Booker's the boss.
No, I don't
I'm
either.
not saying there's no way in hell, and Gosho even confirmed that. He said Kogoro, Agasa, and Booker are not the boss. Doesn't mean that they. I mean, look, Kogoro, there's no way in hell. I'm sorry. But as terms of Booker, I mean, he can be part of the Black organization, but I don't feel like if he was, I have this like a thing like where it's not for evil purposes though, kind of like Jody, and I feel Rummy too. Like I don't feel Rummy is fully evil. Like she gives me, and you can have a different opinion. Let me know how you feel about her. I feel like she is legitimately like the beginning embodiment of what Jodie was when she first introduced into the series. The oddly suspicious, like, okay, you're up to no good. I like when you're on screen because that means something cool is going to happen, but like, there's something up with your character. And then she was also looking at like the Black Organization death list. So, in my opinion, I feel like she works for somebody. I don't feel like she's evil. She feels like another Jody character to me.
She's pretty interesting
But
in her own right, I've got to say.
and the weird part is that I don't like about her being is the fact that she's their
Right.
teacher. You know, like I get it. Like so was Jody, but like Jody was also very sweet, and yes, she is. She's the too oddly suspicious. She's always smirking, always leading Conan to something. Like in my opinion, I'm not saying like she's like evil or would use them like to turn him in or anything. Like Bourbon, like I love Bourbon, but I have a love-hate relationship with him. Like there's no reason to be doing like the stuff that he does just to get to the top. Like he doesn't care who he hurts or who he kills. You know, whether let's say he knew who Shinichi was or not, the fact that he was doing what he was doing for Shinichi was a bit messed up. Like I said, I don't know if he knows who Shinichi is or not, but like the fact that he's willing to like uproot the entire Kudo family, at least knowing like the Kudo family is somewhat related to Conan, is a bit messed up. I get it, Akai, you have some sour grapes with him, sure, but like I don't know, Bourbon is just I wouldn't trust him with anything. And the one thing I'm not sure with, and I also like to get people's opinions on, when he grabbed Sherry and he said, you know, I'm willing to I'm going to take you in alive. Do you really think he was going to take her into the organization, or do you think he was going to take her to like his true allies? Like, what do you think he was really going to do in that moment? Because I still don't even know. Like, I could see him going both ways, but that's just because of what he would do to Akai, and apparently now Shinichi. But like, because a lot of people don't piece this all together, like the way that like Alina, which is Sherry's mom, is related to Bourbon in the sense, you know, that was the number one person that Bourbon ever looked up to. And that's her daughter. You know what I mean? Like, whether he he knows that because he calls her Hell's Angel's daughter. So, I mean, like, I guess he knows. But, like, in the sense, it's like, would you really kill her daughter? Like, and she knows what's going to happen to her when she goes back in the organization. She's either going to die or
I don't know if they would or not.
This is your one-stop shop. Subscribe and remember, with a keen eye for details, one truth will always prevail.